Friends, video is too big. If you don't want to watch the full video, then go to the description below the video. There I have written all the chapters and timestamps of the video. Just click on the timestamps, then video will start from where you want to watch. This is Bori Critical Mahabharat book chapter 79, Mahabharat War. And if you want to see our previous videos, then click the channel name or picture below the video, then go to the video or playlist option. Dhritarashtra said, "O Sanjay." So Sanjay was also present in Mahabharat war. After war, Sanjay told everything to Dhritarashtra. Okay. And friends, please press the red subscribe option and press the bell icon for my latest video updates. O Sanjay, as you have described them, I have heard about the many wonderful duels that took place between those on the side of the sons of Pandu and those on my side, O Sanjay, but you have never spoken about those on my side being happy. You have always described the sons of Pandu as happy and as those who are never routed. O Suta, you have spoken about those on my side being distressed and deprived of energy in the battle. There is no doubt that this is because of destiny. O Sanjay, O bull among men, those on your side are striving to do battle to the best of their capacity and the best of their enterprise. They are displaying supreme manliness to the best of their capability. The water of Ganga, the river of the gods, is sweet, but when it merges into the great ocean, it attains the quality of salinity. O king, the manliness of the great souled ones on your side is like that. When they confront the brave sons of Pandu in battle, they obtain no success. They are trying to the best of their strength and are performing extremely difficult tasks. O foremost among the Kurus, you should not ensure them because they have merged with the Kauravas. O Lord of the earth, this great and terrible destruction of the earth and the extension of Yama's kingdom has come about because of your crimes and those of your sons. O king, since it is because of your own sins, you should not grieve over this. The lords of the earth desire the worlds that can be obtained by performing good deeds in battle, striving for heaven. They are fighting and penetrating the army formations, O great king. On the forenoon of the day, there was a great destruction of people, like that in that battle between the gods and the asuras. Listen with single minded attention. The two great souled and great archers from Avanti, immensely strong, saw Iravat in that battle and encountered him with ferocity. The battle that took place between them was tumultuous and made the body hair stand up. Iravat was extremely enraged. He quickly preached those brothers who were like gods with sharp and straight or tufted arrows. In that encounter, those beautiful warriors pierced him back, O king. They fought on, and there was nothing to differentiate the two parties. They sought to kill the enemy and neutralized each other's endeavor. O king, Iravat used 4 arrows to dispatch his 4 horses to Yama's abode, O venerable one, with two extremely sharp and broad headed arrows he sliced off his bow and standard. O king, in that encounter, this was extraordinary. At this, Anuvinda discarded his chariot and climbed onto Vinda's chariot. He grasped a supreme and new bow that was capable of bearing a great burden. In that battle, those two brave ones from Avanti, supreme among Rathas, were stationed on the same chariot. They swiftly showered arrows on the great soul Iravat. They released extremely swift arrows decorated with gold. They covered the sky and reached the path of the sun. Iravat became extremely angry in that battle and showered down arrows on those Maharatha brothers. He brought down their charioteer. Having lost his life, the charioteer fell down on the ground. The horse were no longer controlled and dragged the chariot off in various directions. O great king, the son of the Naga king's daughter, triumphed in this way. He quickly displayed his manliness and began to slaughter your soldiers. Thus killed in battle, the great army of the sons of Dhritarashtra reeled around in many directions like a man who was drunk poison. Hidimba's son, Indra among the Rakshasas, advanced against Bhagdatta. The immensely strong one was on a chariot that had the complexion of the sun and possessed a standard. The king of Parjotisa was seated on a king of elephants. Like the wielder of the Vajra in ancient times, in the Tarakamya battle, the gods, together with the Gandharvas and the rishis, assembled and were unable to differentiate between Hidimba's son and Bhagdatta, just as Shakra, the lord of the gods, had driven the Danavas away with weapons in that encounter. The king drove the Pandavas away in all directions. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, the Pandavas were driven away in all the directions and within their own ranks could not find a single one who could protect them. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, but we saw Bhimsena's son stationed on his chariot there, through the other Maharathas had fled with dispirited hearts, O descendant of Bharata lineage, when the soldiers of the Pandus returned again in that encounter, your soldiers let out a terrible roar. O king, in that great battle, Ghatotkach enveloped Bhagdatta with arrows, like clouds raining down on Mount Meru. The king repulsed the arrows released from the Rakshasa's bow, and in the battle quickly pierced Bhimsena's son in all his inner organs. He oppressed him with many straight toothed arrows, but the Indra among Rakshasas was not distressed and was like an immobile mountain. At this, Parjotisa became angry. In that encounter, he hurled 14 javelins. However, the Rakshasas sliced them down. Having sliced the javelins down with his sharp arrows, the mighty armed one pierced Bhagdatta with 70 gold tufted arrows. O king, O descendant of the Bharata lineage, but Payajotisa only laughed. In that battle, he used arrows to bring down his 4 horses. Through the horses were slain, the powerful Indra among Rakshasas remained stationed on his chariot. He powerfully hurled a javelin towards Parjotisa's elephant. This possessed a golden shaft and was extremely swift. As it suddenly descended, the king cut it down into three and shattered. It fell down on the ground. On seeing that the javelin had been destroyed, Hidimba's son fled and left the field of battle. Like in ancient times, Namuchi, supreme among Daityas, had fled from Indra, the brave and valiant one, famous for his manliness, won that battle, O king. He was invincible in battle like Yama and Varuna. O king, in that battle he began to crush the Pandava soldiers with his elephant, like a wild elephant destroying the stalks of lotuses. In that battle, the lord of Madra fought with the twins, means Nakul Sahadev, the sons of his sister. He enveloped the sons of Pandu with a cloud of arrows. Finding himself engaged in battle with his maternal uncle, Sadeva repulsed him with a shower of arrows like clouds surrounding the sun. Covered by the shower of arrows, he seemed to be happy on account of their mother. The twins were also extremely delighted. O king, in that battle, smilingly, the Maharata used four supreme arrows to dispatch Nakula's four horses to Yama's abode. With the horses slain, the Maratha quickly descended from his chariot and ascended onto his illustrious brother's vehicle. In that battle, the brave ones stretched their bows while stationed on the same chariot. In a short while, they angrily covered the chariot of the king of Madra with arrows. He was surrounded with many straight tufted arrows released by his sister's son, but the tiger among men did not waver and was like a mountain. As if laughing, he destroyed that shower of arrows. Sadeva became angry. O descendant of the birth lineage, the valiant one picked up an arrow and released it in the direction of the king of Madra. That arrow released by him was as forceful as Garuda. It pierced the king of Madra and fell down on the ground, having been severely wounded and painted. The Maratha sat down on the floor of his chariot. O great king, he lost his consciousness on seeing that he had fallen down and had lost his senses in that encounter and had been oppressed by the twins. His charioteer drew his chariot away on seeing that the chariot of the Lord of Madra had retreated. The sons of Dhritarashtra lost heart. All of them were distressed, and through that he was no longer alive, having vanquished their maternal uncle in battle. Madri's Maratha sons were delighted. They blew their conch shells and roared like lions. O Lord of Earth, O King, filled with joy, they attacked your soldiers like the immortal Indra and Upendra attacking the army of Daityas. Next chapter 80. Sanjay said, when the sun reached the midpoint, King Yudhishthira saw Shutayu and urged his horses towards him. The king attacked Shutayu, the scourger of enemies, and pierced him with 9 sharp and straight tufted arrows. But in that encounter, the king, the great archer, encountered the arrows shot by Dharma's son and attacked and struck Konteya with 7 arrows. In that battle, this penetrated his armor and drank up his blood, as if all the vital forces in the great soul one's body had been sucked out. Pandava was severely wounded by the great soul king. However, in that encounter, he pierced the king in the heart with an arrow that was like a boar's ear. With another broad-headed arrows, Partha, foremost among Rathas, quickly brought down the great sword one's standard from his chariot and made it fall down on the ground. O king, on seeing that his standard had been brought down, King Shutayu pierced Pandava with 7 sharp arrows. At this, Yudhishthira, Dharma's son, blazed up in anger. like the fire that burns at the end of a yuga and consumes all beings. O great king, on seeing Pandava enraged, the gods, the Gandharvas, and the Rakshasas were painted and anxious. All the beings through that, thus enraged, the king would destroy the three worlds then. O king, when Pandava was thus angered, the rishis and the gods uttered great words of uh, benediction so that three might be so that there might be peace in the worlds. He was overcome with rage and licked the corners of his mouth. His appearance was as terrible as that of the sun at the time of the destruction of a yuga. O Lord of the earth, O descendant of the birth lineage, all the soldiers in your army became distressed, and through that they would no longer remain alive, but the immensely famous one controlled his anger through patience. He sliced down Shutayu's great bow from his hand. After the bow had been sliced down, while all the soldiers looked on in the battle, the king used an iron arrow to pierce him between the breasts. O king, nimble on his feet, the great soul and extremely strong one, then used sharp arrows to kill his mounts and his charioteer. On witnessing the king's manliness and with his horses slain, Sutayu gave up his chariot and swiftly fled from the field of battle. Dharma's son defeated the great archer in that encounter, O king. Because of this, all of Duryodhana's soldiers became reluctant to do battle, O great king. Having accomplished this, Yudhishthira, Dharma's son, began to slaughter your soldiers like death with a gaping mouth. While all the soldiers looked on, Varshnaya Chekitana enveloped Gautama, supreme among charioteers, with arrows. In that encounter, Kripa, Sharatvat's son, encountered all those arrows, O king. Fighting with care in that battle, he pierced Chekitana with arrows. O venerable one, he used another broad-headed arrows to slice down his bow. Displaying his lightness of hand in that encounter, he brought down his charioteer. O king, he killed his horses and the two charioteers who protected his flanks. Satvata swiftly leaped down from his chariot and grabbed a club. With that club, capable of killing heroes, that supreme among wielders of clubs killed Gautama's horses and brought down his charioteer. Gautama stood on the ground and shot 16 arrows at him. Those arrows pierced Saratvata and entered the ground. Chekitana became angry, wishing to kill Gautama like Purandara against Vritra. He again hurled his club. That polished and great club was as hard as stone. On seeing it descend, Gautama repulsed it with thousands of arrows. O descendant of the Bhartalineage, Chekitana drew his sword out from its sheath. With supreme lightness, he attacked Gautama. Gautama discarded his bow and took up an extremely sharp sword. O king, he advanced with great speed towards Chekitana. Both of them was extremely strong and both wielded supreme swords. They began to strike each other with those supremely sharp swords. Those bulls among men were struck with the force of each other's swords and fell down on the ground. the abode of all beings. Their climbs become unconscious and they were exhausted because of their exertions. Because of his affectionate feelings, Karakarsha, invincible in battle, swiftly rushed to the spot. He saw that Chekitana was in that state, and while all the soldiers looked on, took him up on his own chariot, O Lord of the earth. The brave Shakuni, your brother-in-law, swiftly took Gautama, supreme among Rathas, up on his chariot, O king. In anger, the immensely strong Dhrishtaketu pierced Somadatta's son in the chest with 90 arrows. O great king, with those arrows on his chest, Somadatta's son looked resplendent like the sun with its rays at midday. However, in that battle, Vrishrava killed Mahabharata, Dhrishtaketu's horses and charioteers with supreme arrows, and he was deprived on his chariot. On seeing that he had been deprived of his chariot, and that his horses and his charioteer had been slain in that encounter, he enveloped him with a great shower of arrows, O venerable one. The great minded Dhrishtaketu then abandoned his chariot and ascended Shatanika's vehicle. O king, the Rathas Chitrasena, Vikarna, and Durmasena were clad in golden armor and attacked Subhadra's son. O king, a terrible encounter commands between Abhimanyu and those armed ones, like that in the body between Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. O king, in that great battle he deprived your sons of their chariots, but remembering Bhima's plague, the tiger among men did not kill them. Bhishma was unassailable. Even the gods in the battle, surrounded by many kings and hundreds of elephants, horses, and chariots, he swiftly advanced to rescue your sons. On seeing this and on seeing that Mahabharata Abhimanyu, who was only a child, was alone, Kaunteya, that one born on white steeds, told Vasudeva, O Harikesha, drive the horses on the spot where those numerous chariots are. There are many brave ones, they are skilled in the use of weapons and invincible in battle. O Madhava, drive the horses so that they cannot slay our soldiers. Thus urged by the infinitely energetic Kaunteya in that encounter, Varshnaya drove the chariot yoked to the white horses there. O Venerable One, when Arjuna angrily advanced into battle, a great uproar was created by your troops. Kaunteya advanced to the kings who were protecting Bhishma. O king, he spoke these words to Susharma. I know that you are the foremost among warriors that and that you bear extreme enmity towards us from earlier times. You will now behold the extremely terrible fruits of that. I will today show you your uh, deceased ancestors having heard these harsh words spoken by Bibhutsu, means Arjuna, the slayer of enemies. Susharma, the leader of a large number of charioteers, did not speak anything in reply, pleasant or unpleasant, but he advanced against the brave Arjuna, surrounded by a large number of kings. O unblemished one, in that battle Arjuna was surrounded by your sons from every direction. To the front the rear and the sides. They enveloped him with arrows like clouds covering the sun. O descendant of the birth lineage, an extremely terrible battle commenced between those on your side and the Pandavas, and in that encounter blood flowered like water. Next chapter, Sanjay said. So Sanjay was also present in that war. After war, Sanjay told everything to Dhritarashtra. The powerful Dhananjaya was breathing like a snake that had been trodden on with the foot. He raised his arrows in that battle. He continuously used arrows to slice down the bows of those Maharathas. In that battle, he instantly sliced down the bows of those valiant kings. The great souled one simultaneously preached them with arrows wishing to slay those illustrious ones. O king, some of those kings fell down on the ground, drenched in blood. They were oppressed by Shakra's son. Their bodies were mangled and their heads fell down. Some died because their armor and their bodies were penetrated. They were overcome by Partha's strength and restored to the ground. They assumed wonderful forms and were simultaneously destroyed. On seeing that those warriors and princes had perished, the king of Trigartha quickly advanced towards Partha. 32 charioteers who were protecting from the rear were also with him. They surrounded Partha and drew their bows with a loud noise. They showered him with a great rain of arrows, like clouds pouring down rain on a mountain. In that encounter, Dhananjaya was oppressed by that shower of arrows, and anger was angered in him. He used 60 arrows that had been washed in oil and killed the ones who had been protecting from the rear. Having vanquished the 60 Rathas, the illustrious Dhananjaya was delighted. Having killed the forces of those kings, Jishnu, or means Arjuna, advanced to slay Bhishma. The king of Trigarta saw that the ranks of his Maratha relatives had been killed. He swiftly advanced to kill Partha in battle, with the lords of the earth following him. On seeing that they were advancing against Dhananjaya, foremost among the wielder of weapons with Shikandi at the forefront, they advanced to protect Arjuna's chariot. They raised sharp weapons in their hands. They raised sharp weapons in their hands. Partha also saw that those brave ones were advancing against him, together with the king of Trigartha. In that battle, he pierced them with sharp arrows, spot from the bow Gandiva. The skilled warriors wished to fight with Bhishma and shot Duryodhana and Shendava and the other kings. For a brief moment, the brave Jishnu used his strength to encounter them, but then the infinitely valorous and greatly energetic one avoided those kings Jayadratha and the other kings with a bow and arrow in his hand. The spirited one, terrible in his strength, went to where Gangeya was. Gangeya means Bhishma. The great soul Yudhishthira, terrible in his strength, also advanced swiftly, his anger having been excited. In that encounter, he avoided the Lord of Madra, whose deeds were infinite and who had been assigned as his share to do battle with the sons of Madri and Bhimsena. He went to the spot where Bhishma, Santanu's son, was stationed. Ganga's son was wonderful in battle. He was set upon by all the Maharathas together. But Santanu's great souled son was not distracted. King Jayadratha was terrible in his valor and spirited. He was a warrior who was unwavering in his aim. He advanced against those Maharathas and slashed down their bows with his supreme bow. The great soul Duryodhana was overcome with the poison of anger. His wrath having been ignited, he used arrows that were like fire to fight with Yudhishthira, Bhimsena, the twins, and Partha. They were also preached with arrows shot by Kripa, Shalya, Shala, and the Lord Chitrasena, and their anger increased. Like the gods, when they confronted the assembled Daityas, Shikandi's weapon had been slashed down by the king who was Santanu's son. On seeing that he was running away in that battle, the great soul Ajatsatru became wrathful and spoke these words of anger to Shikandi. Ajatsatru means Yudhishthir. You spoke these words to me in the presence of your father, using arrows that are clear and have the complexion of the sun. I will kill Bhishma, who is great in his vows. I say this truthfully. This was the plague you took, and you are not making it come true. You are not killing their brother in battle. O brave one, among men, you have become false in your oath. Protect your dharma and the fame of your lineage. Behold, Bhishma is fighting with terrible force. He is tormenting the masses of my soldiers. The net of his arrows is freezed in its energy like death himself. He is killing everything in an instant. Your bow has been slashed down by the king who is Santanu's son. You have been vanquished and are running away from the field of battle. You are abandoning your relatives and your brothers where you are going. This is not becoming of you. Bhishma is infinite in his valor. On seeing him, our soldiers are rooted and are fleeing. O Drupada's son, you are certainly frightened, and complexion of your face is distressed. O brave one among men, honoring his commands, Dhananjaya is enraged in this great battle. O brave one, you are famous on earth. Why are you now frightened by Bhishma? Dharmaraja's words were harsh, but he heard them and perceived them to be full of sound reason. O king, having honored this instruction, the great soul one swiftly set about the task of killing Bhishma. Shikandi advanced towards Bhishma with great force. Shalya encountered him with weapons that were terrible and extremely difficult to resist. O king, however, Drupada's son was like Indra in his power. He saw those weapons, which were as powerful as the fire at the destruction of a yuga, and was not confounded at all. The great archer countered those weapons with his own arrows. To encounter them, Shikandi took up another terrible weapon known as Varuna. The god stationed in the firmament and the sky saw those weapons repulsed by this weapon. O king, in that battle, the great soul and brave Bhishma slashed down and bow and colorful standard of Pandu's son, King Yudhishthira, Ajamida, on seeing that Yudhishthira was overcome with fear and had cast aside his bow and arrows in that battle, Bhimsena grabbed a club and advanced on foot against Jayadratha. On seeing Bhimasena's advance with great speed with the club, Jayadratha pressed him from every direction with 500 sharp and terrible arrows that were like Yama's staff. But the swift Virkodhara, his heart full of rage, paid no attention of these arrows in that battle. He slew the mounts which bore the king of Sindhu in that encounter once that had been born in Ratha. Your son was unrevealed in his prowess and was like the king of the gods. On seeing Bhimsena, he swiftly advanced on his chariot to kill him. With his weapons raised, Bhima suddenly roared, uttering threats. He rushed towards him with a club in every direction. The Kurus saw the upraised club like Yama's staff. All of them wished to avoid the descendant of the terrible club and abandoned your son, O descendant of the birth lineage. There was a tumultuous and extremely terrible melee, and they were all confounded. But despite seeing the great club descended, Chitrasena did not lose his senses. He discarded his chariot and restored to fighting on foot, grasping a polished sword and shield. He leapt down like a lion from the peak of a mountain and restored to the face of the earth. In that battle, the club descended on the colorful chariot and killed the horses and the charioteer. It then fell down on the ground like a flaming and giant meteor that has been dislodged from the sky and has fallen down or descended to the birth lineage. On witnessing the extraordinarily, extremely great and unrevealed feat accomplished by your son, all the soldiers were delighted and honored him. They uttered a roar in every direction. Next, chapter 82. Sanjay said, on seeing that the spirited Chitrasena was without a chariot, your son Vikarna picked him up on his own chariot. An extremely tumultuous and fierce battle raged there. Bhishma, Santanu's son, swiftly attacked Yudhishthira. With their chariots, elephants, and horses, the Srinjayas trembled. They uh, thought that Yudhishthira was already inside the mouth of that. However, the Lord Kaurava Yudhishthira, together with his twins, attacked the great archer and tiger among men, Bhishma, Santanu's son, in that battle. Pandavas shot thousands of arrows. They enveloped Bhishma like clouds covering the sky. O descendant of the birth lineage, Gangeya received a net of innumerable arrows in hundreds and thousands. O venerable one, Bhishma also released a net of arrows. It looked like a swarm traveling through the sky. In that battle, in an instant, Bhishma, Santanu's son, made Kaunteya invincible. In that encounter, through the net of arrows he shot in groups, King Yudhishthira was enraged and dispatched an iron arrow at the great souled Kaurava. It was like a virulent serpent, O king, but before it could reach him in that encounter, Maharata Bhishma used a Shurapra arrows to slash down the weapon released from the bow. Having destroyed the iron arrow in battle, which was like that, Bhishma killed the horses decorated with gold of the Indra among Kauravas. With the horses slain, Yudhishthira, Dharma's son, abandoned the chariot and swiftly ascended the chariot of the great sword Nakula. Bhishma, the destroyer of enemy cities, was extremely enraged in that battle. He attacked the twins and covered them with arrows. O great king, on seeing that they were oppressed by Bhishma's arrows, he desired Bhishma's that an anxiously through about the means. Yudhishthira addressed all the kings and well-wishers who were following him. All of you unite and kill Bhishma, Santanu's son. All the kings heard the words that Partha had addressed, and they surrounded the grandfather with a large number of chariots. Your father Devbrata was surrounded in every direction, O king. He seemed to be playing with his bow and brought down those Maharathas, while all the Parthas looked on. Kaurava strode around on that field of battle like a lion club in the forest amidst a herd of deer. He rode in the battle and pretended the brave ones with his arrows, O great king, they were pretended on seeing him like a herd of deer at a lion. The Kshatriyas saw the movements of that lion among the Bharata lineage in that battle. He was like a fire consuming dry wood, aided by the wine. In that encounter, Bhishma brought down the deads of the Rathas like a skilled man bringing down ripe fruit from a palm tree. O great king, as those heads fell down on the ground, there was a tremendous sound like that of stones falling down. There was a tumultuous and extremely terrible battle. There was great and extreme confusion among all the soldiers. The vyuhas of the Kshatriyas were thus shattered. In that battle, they challenged one another to a fight. Shikandi forcefully approached the grandfather of the Bharatas, asking him to wait. But Bhishma avoided Shikandi in that battle, remembering Shikandi's feminine nature. Instead, he angrily attacked the Sanjayas because Shikandi was homosexual. Okay. On seeing Maharatha Bhishma, the Sanjayas were delighted. They roared like lions and uttered many other shouts. These mingled with the sound of conch shells. O Lord, this was a time when the sun was stationed on the other side of the directions. A battle with chariots and elephants commands. Panchala, Dishtidumya, and Maratha Satyaki oppressed the soldiers terribly, using a shower of spears and javelins. O king, in that battle they used many arrows to strike down those on your side. O bull among men, too, those your side were killed in that battle. The noble ones were resolved to fight in that battle and did not retreat from the encounter. In that battle, those Maratha men stooped to the best of their endeavors, but a great lamentation arose among the great souled ones on your side. On hearing this terrible lamentation amidst the Maharathas on your side, Vinda and Anuvinda from Avanti attacked Parshata. Those swift Maharathas slew his horses. They enveloped Parshata with a shower of arrows. At this, the extremely strong Panchala quickly jumped down from his chariot. He swiftly ascended the chariot of an extremely great souled Satyaki. King Yudhishthira was surrounded by a large army. With this, in that battle, he angrily attacked the scourger of enemies from Avanti. O venerable one, your sons made every effort to surround Vinda and Anuvinda from Avanti. O bull among the Kshatriya lineage, Arjuna angrily fought against the Kshatriyas. He fought in that battle like the wielder of the Vajra against the Asuras. Drona was also angry in that battle, wishing to do that which would bring your son pleasure. He began to consume all the Panchalas like a fire amidst a mass of cotton, O Lord of the earth, with Duryodhana at the forefront. Your son surrounded Bhishma in that battle and fought against the Pandavas, or descendant of the Bharati lineage. When the son assumed a resisting King Duryodhana spoke to all those who were on your side, do not delay. They fought on and accomplished extremely difficult tasks. But the sun ascended the Asta mountain and could no longer be seen. An extremely terrible river began to flow, and its current and waves were made out of blood. It was infested with masses of jackals, and it was the mound of twilight jackals let out fearful howls, and it was inauspicious. The terrible field of battle was infested with the spirits of the deeds, Rakshasas, Pisachas, and others who fed on flesh were seen in every direction, in hundreds and thousands. Arjuna vanquished the kings who followed Susharma together with their followers. In the midst of his divisions, he then proceeded towards his own camp, O Indramon king. Since it was night, surrounded by the soldiers, and with his brothers, King Kaurava Yudhishthira also went to his own camp. Having vanquished the Rathas headed by Duryodhana in battle, Bhimsana also went to his own camp. In that great battle, Duryodhana was surrounded by the kings with Bhishma, Santanu's son. He swiftly went to his camp, surrounded by all the armies. Drona's son, Kripa, Shalva, and Satyaki Kritavarma also went to their camps. O king, surrounded in the battle by all the warriors, Satyaki and Parshata Dishtidumya also went to their camps. O great king, when it was night, thus did the scriptures of enemies on your side and on that of the Pandavas retreat. The Pandavas and the Kurus went to their own camps. O great king, they entered and honored each other. The brave ones made arrangements for protecting themselves and set up outposts according to the prescribed methods. They removed the stakes and bathed in different kinds of water. Benedictions were pronounced, and all of them were praised by bards. Those illustrious ones sported to the sound of singing and the playing of musical instruments. For a short while, every seemed to be like heaven. The Marathas did not speak at all about what transpired in that battle. O king, having been thus exhausted, all the people in the army slept. O king, with the large numbers of elephants and horses, it was seen to be beautiful. Next chapter 83, seventh day of Mahabharat war. Sanjay said, those lord of men spent the night happily. So Sanjay was also present in Mahabharat war. After the war, Sanjay told everything to Dhritarashtra. Those lord of men spent the night happily, engrossed in sleep. Then the Kurus and the Pandavas again emerged to fight. A great sound arose from both the armies as they emerged to do battle. It was like the great ocean. King Duryodhana, Chitrasena, Vivinshati, Bhishma, supreme among Rathas, and the Brahmana, who was Bharadwaja's son, united themselves and arrayed the the great army of the Kauravas. O king, they armored themselves and formed a vyuha to encounter the Pandavas. O lord of the earth, your father Bhishma constructed a great vyuha. It was as terrible as the ocean, with the mounts as its waves. Bhishma, Santanu's son, advanced at the forefront of all the soldiers. He was supported by the Mahabharat, those from the south and those from Avanti. Bharadwaja's powerful son was next to him. The Pulindas, the Paradas, and the lesser Malvas were with him. O Lord of the earth, the powerful Bhagadatta was next to Drona, together with the Magadhyas, the Kalingas, and the Pisachas. Brihadbala, the king of Koshala, was behind Parjyotisha together with the Makalas, the Tripuras, and the Chichilas. Next to Brihadbala was the brave Trigata, the lord of Prahasthala. He was accompanied by a large number of Kunti Bhojas and thousands of Yavanas. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, Drona's brave son was next to Trigartha and advanced to do battle. He roared like a lion and made the earth resounded by his brothers. Duryodhana was next to Drona's son and Kripa Saradbat was behind him. It was thus that the great Vyuha advanced like an ocean. O Lord, there were resplendent flags and dazzling umbrellas. There were colorful bracelets and extremely expensive bows. On seeing the great Vyuha of your soldiers, Mahabharata, Yudhishthira quickly addressed Parshata, the supreme commander, O great archer. Behold the Vyuha that has been constructed. It is like an ocean, O Parshata. Without any delay, create a counter Vyuha. Having been thus addressed, the brave Parshata constructed an extremely terrible Vyuha. O great king, it was called Sringataka, and it was destructive of the Vyuhas of enemies. Bhimshana and Maharata Satyaki were at the two horns with many thousands of chariots, horses, and infantry. The foremost of men, the one with the white horses and the ape on his standard, was next to them. King Yudhishthira was in the center with the Pandavas who were Madri's son. Other kings were great archers skilled in the use of weapons, filled up the Vyuha with their soldiers. Abhimanyu was at the rear with Maharatha Virata, Draupadi's delighted sons, and the Rakshasa Ghatotkach, or descendant of the Bharata lineage. Thus did the Pandavas arrange themselves in the form of a gigantic Vyuha. The brave ones stationed themselves in that battle, wishing to fight and desiring victory. The tumultuous sound of drums mingled with the sound made by conch shells. Armpits were slapped, and a terrible noise arose in all the directions. In that battle, the brave ones then confronted each other. O king, they glanced at each other in rage without blinking their eyes. O Indra woman, they challenged each other, summoning each other by name first. A battle commenced. The battle that started was terrible in form and fearful. Those on your side, those of the enemy, shout to kill each other. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, sharp iron arrows descended in that battle. They were like fearful snakes with gaping mouths. They were polished and extremely energetic lances that had been washed in oil. O king, they were as radiant as lightning. In the clouds, they were polished and thick clubs covered in clothes and decorated with gold. They were seen to descended like beautiful summits of mountains. There were radiant swords as clear as the sky. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, there were shields made out of the hides of bulls. with 100 moons marked on them, O king. They were resplendent in that battle as they descended in every direction. O Lord of men, the two armies encountered each other in that battle. They dazzled like the armies of the gods and the Daityas. When arrays against each other in that battle, they clashed against each other in every direction. In that supreme battle, chariots quickly clashed against chariots. At those bulls among men fought, the yokes of one got entangled with the yokes of another. O foremost among the Bharata lineage, tuskers fought with tuskers, and because of the friction, flames were seen in every direction, mingled with smoke. In all direction, all directions, struck by lances, some warriors on elephants were seen to fall down like the summits of mountains. Infantry was seen to kill each other. The brave ones fought in many colorful ways and used lances and bare nails. Thus did the soldiers of the Kurus and the Pandavas attack each other. Many terrible weapons were used in that battle to dispatch others to the eternal worlds. The chariot of Bhishma, Shantanu's son, rode in that battle. He advanced against the Pandus and confronted them with the twang of his bow. The chariots of the Pandavas also emitted a terrible roar. With Dishtidumya at the forefront, they advanced together, O descendant of the Bharata lineage. Thus did the battle between you and them commence. Men, horses, chariots, and elephants got entangled with each other. Next chapter 84. Sanjay said in that battle the powerful Bhishma was enraged like the sun. He tormented in every direction and the Pandavas were incapable of glancing towards him. On the instruction of Dharma's son, all the soldiers rushed towards Gangeya, means Bhishma, who was causing operations with his sharp arrows. But the great archer Bhisma prided himself in battle with his arrows. He brought down the Somakas together with the Sinjayas and the Panchalas. Through they were slaughtered by Bhishma, the Panchalas and the Somakas gave up their fear of death and quickly attacked Bhishma. O king, in that battle, the brave Bhishma, Santanu's son, powerfully sliced off the arms and the heads of those Rathas. Your father Devrata deprived the Rathas of their chariots. The heads of horse riders fell down from the horses. O great king, confounded by Bhishma's weapon, he saw elephants lying around like mountains. Deprived of their riders, O Lord of the earth, among the Pandavas, there was no one other than the immensely strong Bhimsena, foremost among Rathas, who could resist him. In that encounter, he was the one who engaged Bhishma. There was a terrible battle between Bhishma and Bhima, and an extremely terrible and fearful roar arose from all the soldiers. The delighted Pandavas also roared like lions, surrounded by his brothers. King Duryodhana protected Bhishma in that battle, which result which resulted in a destruction of man. Bhishma was supreme among Rathas, but Bhima slew his charioteer. The horses were no longer controlled and dragged the chariot away in all directions. With a swift arrow, the destroyer of enemies sliced off Shunabha's head. He was slain by the extremely sharp Shurapra and fell down on the ground. O great king, when your Maratha son was killed in that battle, seven of his brothers could not tolerate this. Ad- Adityaketu, Bhavashi, uh, Aparajita attacked Pandava in that encounter. They were clad in colorful armor and sported diverse standards. Those creatures of enemies attacked in that battle, wishing to fight. In that encounter, Mahodara preached Bhimsena with 9 arrows like the killer of Vitra against Namuchi. Each was like the Vajra. Adit Yaketu preached him with 70, Bhavashi with 5, uh, Kundadhara with 90 and Vishalaksha with 7. O great King Maharatha Aparajita, the vanquisher of enemies, preached the immensely strong Bhimsena with many arrows. In that encounter, Panditaka also preached him with 3 arrows, but in the battle, Bhima did not tolerate the attacks of his enemies. The destroyer of enemies grasped the bow in his left hand. Your son Aparajita possessed an excellent nose. In that battle, he used an arrow with a drooping tuft to slice off his head. In that encounter, he was defeated by Bhima and his head fell down on the ground. While all the people looked on, he used another broad headed arrow to dispatch Maharatha Kundadhara to the land of the dead, O descendant of the Bharata lineage. In that battle, the one with the immeasurable soul that grasped another arrow and dispatched it towards Pandikata. The arrow killed Panditaka and penetrated the ground. It was like a serpent that kills a man whose time has come. Remembering his earlier hardships, the one whose soul is not depressed then used 3 arrows to slice off Vishalaksha's head and make it fell down on the ground. The great archer then struck Mahodara between the breasts with an iron arrow. O king, preached in the battle, he was slain and fell down on the ground. In the encounter, he sliced off Adiketu's standard with an arrow. He used an extremely sharp and broad-headed arrow to slice off the enemy's head. The angry Bhima then used an arrow with a drooping tip to dispatch Bhavashi towards Yama's abode. O Lord of the earth, your other sons fled. They remembered the words that he had spoken in the assembly hall. Because of his brothers, King Duryodhana was distressed. He spoke to all the warriors, there is Bhima, let him be killed in battle. O Lord of the earth, having been thus addressed, your sons, the great archers, saw that their brothers had been killed and remembered the beneficial words that the immensely wise Chata had spoken. The words of the one who could foresee were now coming true. O Lord of men, you were overcome by avarice and confusion because of affection towards your sons. In earlier times, you did not understand the purpose of those great and beneficial words. Given the way the powerful Pandava is killing your sons, it seems that the mighty armed one has been born from the shake of killing the Kauravas. O venerable one, King Duryodhana was overcome by great grief and distress. He went to Bhima and began to lament. My brave brothers have been killed by Bhimsena in battle. All the soldiers are fighting to the best of their capacity, but they are being killed. You seem to be neutral and are constantly disregarding us. I have chosen to traverse an evil path. Behold my destiny on hearing Duryodhana's cruel words. Your father Devbrata's eyes filled with tears, and he spoke these words, O son, I uttered these words earlier, and so did Drona. Vidura and illustrious Gandhari, but you did not understand, O destroyer of enemies. It was decided by me earlier that I will not escape from this battle with my life, neither will the preceptor. I tell you truthfully that whichever son of Dhritarashtra Bhima sets his eyes on in this battle will be killed by him in the encounter. O king, therefore be patient, be firm in your resolution to fight. Fight with the Parthas in this battle, setting your sights on heaven as the objective. No one is capable of vanquishing the Pandavas, the gods with Indra, or the Asuras who descended of the birth lineage. Therefore, fix your mind on the battle, be patient, and fight. Next chapter 85. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjay, on seeing that many of my sons are being killed by a single person, what did Bhishma, Drona, and Kripa do in that battle? O Sanjay, from one day to another, my sons are going to their perdition. O Suta, I think that they have been completely overtaken by terrible destiny, since all my sons are being defeated and are never victorious, O son. My sons are in the midst of Bhishma, Drona, and the great soul Kripa, Somdatta's valiant son, Bhagadatta, Ashwathama, and many other brave and extremely great souled warriors. Yet they are being killed in the battle. Others other than destiny, what can this be? The evil Duryodhana did not comprehend the words that I had spoken earlier. O son, he was restrained by me and by Bhishma and Vidura, so did Gandhari, always desiring his welfare. But because of his delusion, the wicked one did not understand earlier and is now reaping the fruits. In this battle, the angry Bhimsena is killing and conveying my incensed son to Yama's abode. Sanjay replied, Shata supreme words were from your own welfare. They have now come true, O Lord. You did not comprehend them then. Vidura had asked you to restrain your sons from the gambling match with the Pandavas and not oppress them. He is a well wisher with your welfare in mind and spoke truthfully, but you did not heed his words. Like a dying man who refuses good medicine, the words spoken by the virtuous have now come to be true. Vidura, Drona, Bhishma, and other well wishers spoke beneficial words that were not accepted, and the Kauravas are headed towards destruction. O Lord of the earth, all of this is the consequence of what transpired earlier. Now, listen to the account of the battle exactly as it unfolded. It was midday, and an extremely great and terrible encounter commenced. O king, there was destruction of men. Listen as I describe it. On the instruction of Dharma's son, all the soldiers were enraged and attacked Bhishma, wishing to kill him. O great king, Dishtidumya, Sikandi, Maratha, Satyaki, together with their armies, advanced against Bhishma. In that encounter, Arjuna, Draupadi's son, and Chekitana united and advanced against the kings who were following Duryodhana's command. The brave Abhimanyu, Hidimba's Maratha's son, and Bhimsena were enraged and attacked the Kauravas. The Pandavas divided themselves into three parts and fought against the Kauravas, O king. The Kauravas also began to kill the enemies in battle. Drona, based among Rathas, angrily advanced against the fought with the Somakas and the Sringayas, dispatching them to Yama's eternal abode, O king, when they were slaughtered in battle by the archer who was Bharadwaja's son. A great lamentation arose among the great souled Somakas. Drona killed many Kshatriyas in that battle. They were seen to be unconscious, Like man afflicted with disease, there were groans, moans, and shrieks in that field of battle. There were continued sounds like those uttered by men overcome with hunger. The immensely strong and angry Bhimsena was like terrible death amidst the karavas and caused carnage in that great battle. Soldiers killed each other. A terrible river began to flow with waves of blood. O great king, that battle between the Kurus and the Pandavas was great and assumed a terrible form. It extended Yama's kingdom. In particular, Bhima was incited with rage in that battle. He descended on the army of elephants and dispatched them to the land of the dead. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, elephants were struck by Bhima's iron arrows. Some of them fell down, others were paralyzed, others shrieked, still others ran away in different directions. O venerable one, great elephants had their trunks sliced off, their feet sliced off, terrified they like cranes. They fell down on the ground. Nakula and Sahadeva attacked the army of horses. The horses possessed golden harnesses. Their caparisons were made out of gold. They were seen to be slain in hundreds of and thousands. O king, the earth was strewn with horses that had fallen down. Some lost their tongues, others could not breathe, still others shrieked in agony and lost their lives. O best of men, the earth was beautiful with horses of many different forms. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, O Lord of the earth looked resplendent yet terrible because in that encounter Arjuna also killed many horses, O king. There were broken chariots, shutters, standards, extremely dazzling umbrellas, golden necklace, bracelets, heads with earring, chosen headdresses, pennants, and beautiful floors, yoked and reins of charioteers everywhere. The earth was as beautiful as spring with its flowers. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, the Pandus were also confronted with this kind of destruction when the angry Bhishma, Santanu, Sandrona, extreme among Rathas, Ashwathama, Kripa, and Kritaparma were enraged, and when those on the other side become angry, those on your side met with decay. Next chapter 86 Sanjay said, O king, when the terrible destruction of brave ones was going on, the illustrious Shakuni, Subala attacked the Pandavas. O king, Hardikeya Satvata, the destroyer of enemy heroes, attacked the army of the Pandavas. In that encounter, Pandavas' brave, powerful son, the scourger of enemies, attacked your soldiers in a cheerful frame of mind. He possessed the foremost of speedy horses, the best of those from Cambodia and from the land of the rivers, those from Arata, Mahi, Sindhu, white ones from Vanayu and others from mountainous regions. They were other swift ones of the Titira breed, as fleet as the wind. They were armored and ornamented in gold. They were trained well. The brave son of Arjuna was named Iravan or Iravat. He was born from the intelligent Partha and was the son of the daughter of the king of the Nagas, means Ulupi. Arjun and Ulupi's son was Iravat or Iravan. When her husband was slain by Suparna, she was distressed and depressed in her mind. She was also childless and was bestowed by the great soul Airavata. She was overcome by the pangs of desire, and Partha accepted her as his wife. Thus it was that Arjuna's son was born in another one's field, protected by his mother. He grew up in the world of the Nagas because of his hatred for Partha, his evil-souled uncle abandoned him. He was handsome and brave and possessed all the qualities. Truth was his valor. He quickly went to Indra's world when he heard that Arjuna had gone there. The one for whom truth was his valor went to his great souled father. He anxiously bowed before him, joining his hands in salutation. He humbly said, O fortunate one, O Lord, I am Iravat, I am your son. I think it's Iravan, not Iravat. I am your son. He told Pandava everything and reminded him of a circumstances about how he had met with his mother. He embraced his son, who was exactly like him in all the qualities. In the abode of the king of the gods, Partha was delighted. O king or descendant of the Bharata lineage, the mighty armed Arjuna then commanded him in the world of the gods and affectionately told him about his duty. Come to us when it is the time for war, O Lord. He agreed and went away in accordance with those words. He presented himself since the time for battle has come, O king. He was surrounded by many swift horses with all the complexions that was desires. Those horses bore golden harness and were of many hues. They were as swift as thoughts, O king. They suddenly arrived and were like swans in the great ocean. They attacked the large numbers of your horses, which were also exceedingly fast. They struck each other on the chest and on the noses. O king, those extremely swift horses suddenly fell down on the ground. Those masses of horses clashed against each other and were shattered and fell down. An extremely terrible sound was heard, like that when Suparna descendants, O great king. Thus it was that they clashed against each other in the battle. The horse riders fiercely began to kill each other. A tumultuous and fearful encounter raged. On both sides, large number of horses dashed around in all directions. The brave ones were mutilated with arrows. The horses were slain. They were overcome with exhaustion. They began to diminish in number, destroying each other with their swords. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, when the armies of horses were whittled away and only a few were left, Shubala's brave younger brothers rode out in the forefront of the battle. They were as astride supreme horses that were like the touch of the wind in their speed. They were as fleet as the wind. They were well trained and not too old or young. Those six were powerful Gaja, Gavascha, Bishnaka, and Shuka. They advanced with a great army and were supported by Shakuni, and there were extremely strong warriors. They were armored and skilled in battle. They were terrible in form and extremely strong, O mighty armed one. With that extremely large army, desiring heaven and victory, they penetrated that extremely invincible army, unassailable in battle. Those from Gandhara cheerfully entered there. On seeing that they had cheerfully penetrated, the valiant Iravat spoke to his own warriors, who were adorned with colorful ornaments and weapons in that battle, at act according to the decreed policy, so that all the warriors of the sons of Dhritarashtra can be killed in that in this battle. Together with their followers and their mounts, agreeing all of Iravat's warriors began to slay the ranks of the enemy. Through the enemy was invincible in battle on witnessing that their ranks were being brought down in that battle. All the Subala's son could not tolerate this state of affairs in that encounter. All of them attacked and surrounded Iravan. They incited each other to attack him with sharp lances. The brave ones dashed around and created a great melee. The great soul Iravat was pierced by sharp lances. Blood began to flow from his body, and he looked like an elephant wounded by a goat. He was severely wounded on his chest, his back, and his sides. O king, he was alone and faced many, but he was not distressed and did not lose his fortitude. Iravan was enraged in that battle. The destroyer of enemy cities confounded all of them by piercing them with sharp arrows. The scourger of enemies uprooted all the lances from his own body and used them to strike Subala's son in that battle. He unsheathed a sharp sword and grasped a shield. He swiftly advanced on foot, wishing to kill Subala's sons in that encounter. Having regained their senses, all of Subala's sons became angry and advanced against Iravan, but displaying the dexterity of his hands with the sword and proud of his strength, Iravan attacked all those sons of Subala. He roamed around with such great speed that Subala's sons, though they were on fleet horses, could not find an opportunity to strike him. However, in that battle, seeing him stationed on the ground again, all of them surrounded him at close quarters, wishing to capture him. The destroyer of enemies saw that they were near him. He used his sword to slice off their right hands and their left and mutilated other parts of their bodies. All their arms were adorned with various ornaments. They were seen to fall down. They too, without their climbs, fell down on the ground, devoid of their lives, O great king. In that extremely terrible battle where brave warriors were slaughtered, only Vrishaka escaped. Though he was severely wounded, on seeing that all of them had fallen down, Duryodhana was frightened. He spoke to the extremely terrible Rakshasa, who was terrible in form. The scourger of enemies was a great archer and was skilled in Maya. That means alambush, the Rakshas warrior. He was the son of uh, Rishyasingha. He had earlier become an enemy of Bhimsena on account of the slaying of Baka. O brave one, witness the strength of Phalguna's son, means Arjuna's son. He is skilled in Maya and has caused the unpleasant and terrible destruction of my forces. O son, you are capable of going anywhere at will. You are skilled in the use of weapons of Maya. You are the sworn enemy of Partha, therefore killed him in battle. The Rakshasa, Alambusha, terrible in form, agreed to these words. He roared like a lion and advanced to where Arjuna's young son was. He was surrounded by his own soldiers who were brave and armed. They were accomplished in fighting, were astride mounts and were armed with polished lances. He wished to kill the immensely powerful Iravan in battle. The valiant and swift Iravan was enraged. The slayer of enemies countered the Rakshasa who was seeking his death. On seeing that he was Descending on him, the extremely powerful Rakshasa swiftly restored to his powers of Maya. He created a large number of illusory horses. They were ridden by terrible Rakshasas who yielded spears and javelins. 2,000 of these armed ones angrily advanced. The two sides clashed and quickly sent each other to the land of the dead. When the soldiers on both sides had been killed, the two of them, invincible in battle, attacked each other in that encounter like Vitra against Vashava. On seeing the Rakshasa, invincible in battle, advanced against him, the extremely strong Iravan was enraged and attacked him. When the evil-minded one approached close, he used his sword to slice off his blazing sword and shattered his shield into 5 parts. On seeing that the bow had been severed, the quickly uh, restored to the sky and angrily confounded Iravan with his Maya. But Iravan also rose up into the sky and confounded the Rakshasa Alambusha with his own Maya. He was invincible too and could assume any form at will. He knew about the body's inner organs and pierced his body with his arrows. O great king, the foremost among Rakshasas was repeatedly wounded through this arrow, but he became hale again and regained his youth. Maya is natural to them, and according to their wishes, so are angry, age, and beauty. Thus, through the Rakshasas' limb were repeatedly mangled, they healed. Iravan used his sharp battle axe to repeatedly slice angrily at the immensely strong Rakshasa Alambusha. The brave and powerful Rakshasa was repeatedly sliced like a tree and roared terribly, making a tumultuous sound. Wounded by the battle axe, the Rakshasa began to profusely shed blood. The powerful one became enraged and continued to battle forcefully. On seeing that the enemy was so energetic in the battle, Rishishinga's son Alambusha assumed an extremely terrible and gigantic form. While everyone looked on, he tried to grasp him in the forefront of the battle. But seeing this Maya employed by the great soul Rakshasa, Iravan angrily created his own Maya. He was overcome by anger and he was on one who never retreated from battle. O king, his mother's relatives approached him and he was surrounded by many Nagas in that battle. Assuming a great form like Bhogavat, the Rakshasa was enveloped by many kinds of Nagas. Enveloped by those Nagas that bull among Rakshasas, thought and assumed the form of Shuparna so that he could devour the Nagas. On seeing that his mother's relatives were devoured through Maya, Iravan was confused and the Rakshasa killed him with his sword. Iravan's head was adorned with earrings and a diadem and was as radiant as a lotus or the moon. The Rakshasa made it fall down on the ground. On seeing that Arjuna's brave son had been slain by the Rakshasa Alambusha, the sons of Dhritarashtra, together with his kings, became free from sorrow. The great and terrible battle commenced again. The armies attacked each other, and the Carnage was great and terrible. Horses, elephants, and infantry became mixed with each other and were killed by Tushkars. Chariot riders and elephants were also killed by foot soldiers. O King Rathas, on your side and on their, killed masses of infantry and chariot riders and many horses in that encounter. Arjuna did not know that his son had been killed and in that battle slew many kings who were protecting Bhishma, O king, the immensely strong ones, on your sides and on that of the Srinjayas. fought each other in that battle, offering their lives an oblation. Their hair was disheveled, they were without armor, they were without chariots, and their bows had been severed, but they confronted each other and fought with their bare arms. The immensely strong Bhishma killed many Maharathas with arrows that penetrated the inard and made the soldiers of the Pandavas tremble. He killed many men in Yudhishthira's army, and many elephants, horse riders, chariot riders, and horses were descended of the Bharata lineage. On witnessing Bhishma's valor in that battle, we thought that it was as extraordinary as Shakra's valor. Or descended of the Bharata lineage, Bhimsena and Parshata were also like that. The battle fought by the Shatvata archer was also terrible. On witnessing Drona's valor, the Pandavas were overcome by fear. They thought that he was alone capable of killing all the soldiers in battle, not to speak of a salutation where he was surrounded by warriors whose bravery was famous on earth. O great king, appraised by Drona in that battle, they spoke to his fashion, O bull among the Bharata lineage. While that terrible encounter continued between the two armies, the brave ones did not pardon each other. Those immensely strong ones were engrossed in that battle as if they were overcome by Rakshasas and demons. The archers on your side and those of the Pandavas were enraged. We did not see anyone seeking to protect his life, O Lord of Man. It was a battle like that of warriors from among the Daityas themselves. Next chapter 87. Dhritarashtra asked, O Sanjay, on seeing that Iravan, Arjun's son Iravan, had been killed in that battle, what did the Maratha Pathas do? Sanjay said, on seeing that Iravan had been killed in the battle, Bhimsena's son, the Rakshasa Ghatotkach, let out a loud roar. O king, at the sound of this roar, the earth up to the frontier of the ocean with its mountains and forests seemed to tremble violently. So did the sky, the directions, and all the subdirections or descended of the Bharata lineage. On hearing this extremely loud roar, the thighs and other climbs of all your soldiers began to tremble. They yucked and began to sweat. O Indraman king, all those on your side became dispirited. They seemed to be in the coils of a snake and were like elephants pretended of a lion. The Rakshasa let out that extremely loud roar. He raised a flaming spear and assumed a terrible form. He was surrounded by terrible bulls among Rakshasas, yielding many weapons. They advanced in great anger like Yama at the destruction of an Yuga. On witnessing his advance in anger and with a terrible form, and beholding that his own soldiers were frightened and were running away, King Duryodhana attacked Ghatotkach. He grasped a large bow and repeatedly roared like a lion. The lord of Banga himself followed him at the back with 10,000 elephants that were like mountains and were exoding most. O great king, on seeing that your son was advancing surrounded by an army of elephants, the traveler of a night became angry. O Indraman kings, a tumultuous battle commenced between the Rakshasa and Duryodhana's soldiers, and it made the body hair stand up. The army of elephants was like a masses of cloud charged with lightning. On beholding it advance, the angry Rakshasas grasped weapons in their hands. They roared in many different ways like thundering clouds full of lightning. They began to strike down the elephant riders with arrows, javelins, swords, iron arrows, catapults, spears, and battle axes. They killed the mighty elephants with the peaks of mountains and trees. Their temples were shattered, blood began to flow from the mangled bodies of the elephants. O great king, we saw that they were killed by those travelers of the night. The warriors on elephants were scattered. O great king, on seeing this, Duryodhana attacked the Rakshasas. He was overcome by intolerance and gave up all desire to protect his own life. The immensely strong and released arrows towards the Rakshasas. The great archers slew the foremost among the Rakshasas, O best of the Bharata lineage. Your son Duryodhana was angry. The Mahabharata used 4 arrows to kill 4 of them. Vegavat, Mahorodra, Vidutjiva, and Pramathi, the best of the Bharata lineage, the one whose soul is immeasurable, showered down arrows that was irresistible towards that army of travelers in the night. O venerable one, on seeing that great deeds of your son Bhimsena's extremely strong son blazed forth in anger, he twanged his great bow with a sound like that of Indra's Vajra. The scourger of enemies forcefully attacked Duryodhana, O great king, on seeing his advance like that urged on by the destroyer. Your son Duryodhana was not distressed. The cruel one angrily spoke to him, his eyes red with rage. It is because of your great cruelty that they were exiled for a long time. O king, you defeated the Pandavas in a diceful game of dice, O one with evil intelligence. It was because of this that Draupadi Krishna was brought to the assembly hall. Though she was in her menses and was clad in a single garment, you caused her hardship in many ways while they dwelled in the hermitage. It was to bring you pleasure that was evil souled. Sandhava tormented her, disrespecting my fathers, O worst of your lineage. Because of these and many others insult, I will bring about your end today. If you do not flee from the field of battle, having said this, Hidimba's son drew his gigantic bow. He bit his lips and licked the corners of his mouth. He covered Duryodhana with a great shower of arrows, like the slayer of Bala, bringing down a shower of rain on a mountain during the monsoon. Next chapter 88, Sanjay said that shower of arrows was difficult to withstand even by the Danavas, but that Indra among kings withstood it in battle like a giant elephant bearing rein, overcome with rage. He sighted like a serpent, O bull among the Bharata lineage. Your son confronted a supreme danger. He released 25 extremely sharp iron arrows. O king, they suddenly descended on that bull among Rakshasas like angry and violent serpents on Mount Gandhamadana. He was praised by them and blood began to flow. He was like an elephant with a shattered temple. The man eater then made up his mind to destroy the king. He grasped a giant javelin that was capable of shattering a mountain. It blazed like a giant meteor and was like Maghavan's Vajra. The mighty armed one raised it, wishing to kill your son. The lord of Vanga was astride an elephant that was like a mountain. On seeing it raised, he swiftly advanced towards the Rakshasa. That supreme of elephants was powerful and was extremely fast. He reached that he reached the path where Duryodhana's chariot was stationed and protected your son's chariot with the elephant. The great king, on seeing that the path had been restricted by the intelligent king of Banga, Ghatotkach's eyes became red with rage. He raised a giant javelin and hurled it towards the elephant. O king, when it was hurled from his arms, the elephant was struck. It was covered with blood and hurt grievously, fell down and died. When the elephant fell down, the powerful lord of Banga quickly jumped down and restored it to the ground. Duryodhana saw that the extreme of elephants that fallen down and that his soldiers were scattered. He was gravely distressed. He held the dharma of Kshatriyas to be of paramount importance and was also proud of his own self. Though he had been defeated, the king remained as immobile as a mountain. He affixed a sharp arrow that was like the fire at the time of destruction, and in great rage unleashed it at the terrible traveler of the night. The arrow was as radiant as Indra's Vajra. On seeing it descend, the gigantic Ghatotkach avoided it through his dexterity of movement. He rode terribly again, his eyes red with anger. This pretended all beings like clouds at the end of a yuga. On hearing the fearful roar of the terrible Rakshasa, Bhishma, Santanu's son, went to the preceptor and said, I have heard the terrible roar emitted by the Rakshasa. I have no doubt that Hidimba's son is fighting with King Duryodhana. No being is capable of vanquishing him in battle. O fortunate one, therefore go there and protect the king. The immensely fortunate one has been attacked by the evil souled Rakshasa, O scourger of enemies. This is the supreme duty of all of us now. On hearing the words of the grandfather, the Maharathas used the utmost speed to quickly go to the spot where Kaurava was. Drona, Somdatta, Balika, Jayadrata, Kipa, Bhurishava, Shalya, Chitrasena, Vivinshati, Ashwathama, Vikarna, the one from Avanti and Brihatbala, many thousand Rathas followed them. They advanced to rescue Duryodhana, your son who was oppressed. Your son who was oppressed, that invincible army was protected by the best in the world. The supreme of Rakshasas saw that it was advancing to kill him. However, like Mount Menaka, the mighty armed one did not tremble at all. Surrounded by his relatives, he grasped a giant bow with spears, clubs, bare hands, and many kinds of weapons. A tumultuous battle commenced and it made the body hair stand up. The Rakshasas were on one side and the foremost of Duryodhana's soldiers on the others. O great king, the tremendous sound of bows being twanged could be heard everywhere as if bamboos were being burned, weapons descended on bodies protected by armor. O king, that sound were like that of mountains being shattered. O lord of the earth, javelins were hurled from the arms of brave ones, and as they traveled through the sky, they looked like snakes. The Indra among Rakshasas became extremely angry. The mighty armed one drew his extremely large bow and let out a terrible roar. In anger, he used an arrow in the shape of a half moon to slice down the preceptor's bow. He roared and used a broad-headed arrow to bring down Somdatta's standard. He used 3 arrows to pierce Balika between the breasts. He pierced Kripa with 1 arrow and Chitrasena with 3. He drew his bow to the full extent and used a well-aimed arrow to strike Vikarna in the joint of his shoulders. Covered in blood, he sank down on the floor of his chariot, O bull among the Bharata lineage. The one whose soul was immeasurable was wrathful. He dispatched 15 iron arrows in the form of half moons towards Bhurishrava. This swiftly penetrated his valor and penetrated the ground. He next struck Bhimanshati and Drona's charioteer. They fell down on the floors of their chariots, giving up the reins of their horses. The standard of the king of Sindhu bore the mark of a boar and was decorated with gold. O great king, he uprooted that with an arrow in the shape of a half moon and used another to saber his bow. The great souled one's eyes were red with rage. He used 4 iron arrows to slay the 4 horses of Avanti. O great king, he stretched his bow back to the fullest extent and used a yellow and sharp arrow to pierce Prince Brihadalva. Gravely pierced and wounded, he sank down on the floor of the chariot. The lord of the Rakshasas was full of great rage and was stationed on his chariot. He shot many arrows that were sharp at the tip and were like venomous serpents. O great king, through Shalya was killed in battle, they praised him. Next chapter 89. Sanjay said, in that battle, the Rakshasa made all those on your side retreat from battle, O best of the Bharata lineage. He then rushed at Duryodhana, wishing to kill him. On seeing him forcefully descended on the king, many on your side, unassailable in battle, attacked him, wishing to kill him. Those immensely strong was twanged bow that were as long as palm trees. They roared like groups of lions, and together attacked the one who was alone. They surrounded him from every direction and showered down arrows. It was like the slayer of Bala showering rain on mountains during the autumn. He was severely pierced and wounded like an elephant with a goad. He quickly rose up into the sky like Vinata's son stationed there. He uttered mighty roars like clouds during the autumn. His terrible roars echoed in the sky, the directions and the sub-directions, O best of the Bharata lineage. On hearing the sounds emitted by the Rakshasa, King Yudhishthira spoke these words to Bhimsena. The Rakshasa is certainly fighting with the Mahatma sons of Dhritarashtra. That is the reason we are hearing the sounds of these terrible roars. O son, I see that the burden he has taken on is too much. The angry grandfather is ready to kill the Panchalas for the sake of protecting them. Falguna is fighting with the enemy. Falguna means Arjun, O mighty armed one. 2 tasks now present themselves. Having heard this, go and protect Hidimba's son. He confronts a great danger. Obeying the words of his brother Bricodara swiftly advanced. He roared like a lion, threatening all the kings. O king, he proceeded with great force like the ocean at the time of the new moon or the full moon. He was followed by Satyadriti and Sochiti, invincible in battle. Srinimath, Vasudhana, and the Lord, who was the son of the king of Kashi. There were many other Maharathas with Abhimanyu at the forefront, Draupadi's son, the valiant Shatradeva, Shatradharma, and Nila, the lord of the marshy region, together with his own soldiers. They surrounded Hidimba's son with a large number of chariots. There were 6,000 elephants that were always crazy, with riders prepared to strike. They advanced to protect Ghatotkach, Indra among the Rakshasas. They roared like lions. There was a great sound from the wheels of the chariots. There was a roar from the sound of the hoofs. The earth began to tremble on hearing the sounds of those advancing ones. The faces of your soldiers paled. They were anxious because of their fear of Bhimsena, O great king. They abandoned Ghatotkacha and fled from the field of battle. A battle then commenced between the great sword ones on your side and those of the enemy. Neither side wished to retreat from the encounter. The Maharathas used many different kinds of weapons. They attacked each other and struck each other. That extremely terrible battle struck terror in the minds of those who were cowards. Horse riders encountered elephant riders, infantry clashed with chariot riders, O king. In that encounter, they challenged each other and attacked each other. Because of that clash, a terrible and great dust arose from chariot, horses, elephants, infantry, footsteps, and wheels. That dust was thick like red smoke and covered the arena of the battle. O king, it was impossible to distinguish those on one's own side from those of the enemy. The father did not recognize the son did not recognize the father. No mercy was shown in the encounter, and it made the body stand up. O best of the Bharata lineage, there was the sound of weapons and the roar of man. There was an extremely large din, like that of bamboos being burned. A river of blood began to flow there, they and the waves were elephants, horses, and men. The hair constituted the weeds and moss. The heads and bodies of men fell down in the battle, and a great sound was heard, like that of stones falling down. The earth was strewn with the torsos of men and mangled bodies of elephants and the mutilated bodies of horses. The Maharathas released many different kinds of weapons. They attacked each other and struck each other, urged by horse riders. Horse clashed against horses. In that battle, they dashed against each other and fell down, devoid of life. Man attacked man, their eyes extremely red with rage. They struck each other with their chest and thus killed each other. Urged by the trainers, elephants attacked the elephants of the enemy, and in that encounter they slew the others with the points of their tusks. They were adorned with pennants and were covered in blood. In that clash, they looked like clouds tinged with lightning. Some had their trunks sliced into two, others had their bodies lizard, they fell down in that tumult like mountains with their wings sliced off. Some supreme elephants had their sides ripped open by other elephants. They shed large quantities of blood, with mountains exuding minerals. Some were slain through iron arrows, others were pierced by javelins. Without their riders, they were seen to be like mountains without summits. Some of them were blind with anger and madness no longer controlled. They crushed hundreds of chariots, horses, and infantry in that encounter. Horse riders praised horses with spears and javelins. They rushed against each other, confused about the directions. Rathas born in noble lineages fought with other Rathas ready to give up their bodies. They restored to the best of their strength and attacked without any fear. O king, those killed in battle sought fame or heaven and fought each other as if in a Swayamvara. Thus the battle raged there, and it made the warriors stand up. The great army of the sons of Dhritarashtra were generally made to retreat. Next chapter 90. Sanjay said on seeing that his own soldiers had been killed, King Duryodhana angrily attacked Bhimsena, the destroyer of enemies. He grasped a giant bow which had a sound like that of Indra's Vajra. He covered Pandava with a great sword of arrows. He was full of rage. He afflicted an extremely sharp arrow that was in the shape of a half moon and was tufted with hair. He slashed down Bhimsena's bow with this. Thereafter, the Mahabharata saw an opportunity. He afflicted an extremely sharp arrow that was capable of shattering a mountain. With this, the mighty armed one struck Bhimsena in the chest. He was severely pierced and wounded and licked the corners of the mouth. The energetic one showed the support of the standard, which was decorated with gold. On seeing Bhimsena in that dispirited state, Ghatotkach blazed up in anger, like a fire that can consume everything. With Abhimanyu at the forefront, all the Maratha Pandavas dashed angrily towards the king, roaring loudly. On seeing them advanced in fury and rage, uh, Bharadwaja's son spoke these words to the Maharathas: On your side, O fortunate one, go swiftly and protect the king. I think he confronts a great danger and is submerged in an ocean of distress. These Maratha Pandavas are great archers and are angry. With Bhimsena at the forefront, they are attacking Duryodhana. With victory in mind, they are using many different kinds of weapons. They are uttering terrible roars and are terrifying the kings. On hearing the words of the protector with Somdatta at the forefront, many of your side attacked the army of the Pandavas. Kripa, Bhurishrava, Shalya, Dronasan, Vivimshati, Chitrasena, Vikarna, Sendhava, Brihadbala, and the two great archers from Avanti. They surrounded Kaurava. They advanced only 20 steps and began to strike each other. The Pandavas and the sons of Dhritarashtra sought to kill each other. Having spoken those words, Bharadwaja's mighty armed son stretched his own gigantic bow and pierced Bhima with 26 arrows. Yet again the mighty armed and quickly enveloped him with arrows. It was like the slayer of Bala showering rain on a mountain during autumn. However, Bhimsena was extremely strong. The great archer swiftly pressed him back on the left side with 10 arrows. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, he was severely pierced and wounded. He was also elderly in years. He became conscious unconscious, and suddenly sat down on the floor of his chariot. On seeing that the preceptor was wounded, King Duryodhana himself and Drona's son Ashwatthama became angry and attacked Bhimsena. Each of them was like Yama and the end of a yuga. On seeing them advance, the mighty armed Bhimsena quickly grasped a club. He instantly descended from his chariot and stood as immobile as the mountain. That heavy club looked like Yama's staff raised in battle. On seeing him with the upraised club like the summit of Kailasha, Kaurava and Drona's son rushed at him. Together, Brikodara also swiftly rushed at those supreme among strong ones as they forcefully advanced against him. On seeing him advanced in rage terrible in his visage, many Kaurava Marathas quickly attacked him with Bharadwaja's son at the forefront. All of them wished to kill Bhimsena. They hurled many different kinds of weapons towards Bhima's chest. Together, all of them oppressed Pandava from every direction. On beholding that the Maratha was oppressed and faced a great danger, Abhimanyu and other Pandava Marathas advanced to rescue him, ready to give up their lives. The brave lord of the Marshy region was Bhima's beloved friend. Nila possessed a complexion that was blue like the clouds, and in danger he attacked Drona's son Ashwatthama. The great archer had always sought to challenge Drona's son. He drew his large bow and pierced Drona's son with arrows. O great king, it was like Shakra piercing the invincible Danava Viprachiti, who was the terror of the gods. In earlier times, through his anger and energy, he had terrified the three worlds. In that way, Nila pierced him with arrows that were well tipped. Drona's son was wounded and covered with blood, and overcome with rage, he drew his colorful bow with a roar like that of Indra's Vajra. The supreme among intelligent ones made up his mind to destroy Nila. He afflicted polished and broad-headed arrows that had been crafted by a blacksmith and slew his 4 horses and brought down his standard. With his 7 broad-headed arrows, he pierced Nila in the breast. He was severely pierced and wounded and sat down on his chariot. King Nila possessed the complexion of the clouds. On seeing that he was unconscious, Ghatotkach became angry. Surrounded by his brothers, he impetuously rushed towards Drona's son Ashwatthama, who was the ornamented of the battle. In that fashion, many of Rakshasas invincible in battle also advanced. On seeing that Rakshasa terrible in form advanced towards him, Bharadwaja's spirited son Drona became angry and killed many Rakshasas who were terrible in form, especially those enraged Rakshasas who were leading from the front. On seeing that they were repulsed as a consequence of the arrows released from the bow of Drona's son, Ghatotkach, Bhimsena's son, who was gigantic in size, became angry. He restored to great Maya that was fearful in form and extremely terrible. In that encounter, the lord of Rakshasas, skilled in the use of Maya, confounded Drona's son because of the Maya. All those on your side retreated. They saw each other lying down immobile on the face of the ground, writing in convulsion, miserable and covered in blood. Drona, Duryodhana, Shalya, Ashwatthama, and the other great archers who were generally regarded as the foremost among the Kauravas were also in that state. All the chariots seemed to be shattered, the elephants brought down, horses and horse riders were cut down in thousands. On seeing this, all the soldiers on your side fled towards their camps. O king, I and Debrata shouted. Debrata means Bhishma and I means Sanjay. Means Sanjay was also present in that Mahabharat war, and after war he told everything to Dhritarashtra. I and Devrata shouted, "Fight, do not run away." This is the Maya of Rakshasas in battle. It has been applied by Ghatotkach, but they were confounded and did not stay. Through both of us shouted in this way, they were pretended and did not pay attention to our words. On seeing that they were running away, the Pandavas shout that they were victorious. Together with Ghatotkach, they roared like lions. The roar and sounds of conch shells and drums resounded in every direction. Thus, all your soldiers were routed by Hidimba's evil-souled son and fled in different directions. It was time for the sunset. Next chapter 91. Sanjay said, after the mighty battle, King Duryodhana went to Gangeya. He honored him and in humility told him everything exactly as it had happened about Ghatotkach's victory and about his own defeat. O king, while narrating the invincible one cited repeatedly, he then spoke these words to Bhishma, O grandfather of the Kurus, O Lord, we sought refuge with you just as the enemy restored to Vasudeva, and we embarked on this terrible conflict with the Pandavas. I possessed evil, illustrious Akshohinis, O scorcher of enemies. They are with me and follow your command, O tiger among the fertile lineage. But I have been defeated by the Pandava warriors, led by Bhimsena. They have restored to Ghatotkach. My body is burning like a dry tree being consumed by a fire. O immensely fortunate one, O scorcher of enemies, I desire your favors. O grandfather, I wish to kill that outcast among Rakshasas myself, O supreme among the Bharata lineage. On hearing these words of the king, Bhishma, Santanu's son, spoke these words to Duryodhana, O king, O Kaurava. Listen to the words that I am speaking to you, O great king, O scorcher of enemies. This is about how you should conduct yourself. O son, O destroyer of enemies, one's own self must always be protected in battle, in every situation. O unblemished one, it is your duty to fight with Dharmaraja, Arjuna, the twins and Bhimsena, upholding the dharma of a king. A king must strike at a king. I, Drona, Kripa, Drona's son, Satvata, Kritavarma, Shalya, Somdatta's son, Maharata, Vikarna, and your brave brothers with Dushasana at the forefront will fight against the immensely strong Rakshasa, Ghatotkach, for your sake. However, if you hatred for that terrible Indra among the Rakshasas in great, let King Bhagdatta advance in battle and fight against the evil-minded one. He is Purandara's equal in battle. Having said this, in the presence of the king, the one who was eloquent with words spoke these words to King Bhagdatta. O great king, swiftly advanced against Hidimba's son Ghatotkach, who is invincible in battle, while all these archers look on. Take care and counter the Rakshasa evil in deeds in the battle, just as Indra resisted Taraka in ancient times. O scorcher of enemies, your weapons are celestial, as so is your valor. So Bhagdatta and Ghatotkach both are equal mighty warriors. Okay. In earlier times, you have had many encounters with Asuras or tiger among kings. In this great battle, you will be able to resist him. O king, surrounded by your own soldiers, you will be able to vanquish the bull among the Rakshasas. On hearing Bhishma's words, the leader of an army roared like a lion and swiftly advanced towards the enemy. O venerable one, on seeing him advance, roaring like a cloud, the Pandava Maharathas became enraged and dashed towards him. Bhimsena, Abhimanyu, the Rakshas, Ghatotkach, Draupadi's son, Satyadriti, Shatradeva, the lord of Chedi, Vasudhana, and the lord of the Sharna, Bhagdatta, advanced against them on Supratika. A terrible and fearful encounter started between the Pandus and Bhagdatta, and it extended Yama's kingdom. The Rathas released extremely energetic arrows fixed in their speed. O great king, these descended on the elephants and the chariots. They shattered the great elephant that were urged by the elephant riders. They clashed and fell against each other without any fear. They were blind and madness and overcome with rage, and in that great battle attacked each other with the tips of tusks that looked like clubs. They gored each other with these. The horses possessed bushy tails, and their riders had lances in their hands, goaded by the riders. They swiftly attacked each other. Foot soldiers attacked foot soldiers, and spears and javelins. Hundreds and thousands fell down on the ground. O king, in that encounter, brave Rathas used barbed and hollow arrows and slew each other, roaring like lions. The battle raged, and it made the body stand up. The great archer Bhagdatta attacked Bhimsena on an elephant with shattered temples, with must streaming down in 7 streams. It was like a mountain with rainwater flowing down from it in every direction. O unblemished one, he was stationed on Supatika's head and showered down thousands of arrows like Magavan showering rain from Airavata. The king tormented Bhima with that shower of arrows, like the slayer of Bala showering down rain on a mountain during the monsoon. Bhimsena became angry, enraged. The great archer showered down arrows and slew more than 100 soldiers who were protecting his feet. On seeing that they had been slain, the powerful Bhagdatta became angry. He urged that Indra among elephants towards Bhimsena's chariot. He urged, and the elephant advanced forcefully towards Bhimsena, the squelcher of enemies, like an arrow released from the string of bow. On witnessing it advance, the Pandava Maharathas, with Bhimsena at the forefront, impetuously advanced towards it. O venerable one, they were those from Kekeya, Abhimanyu, all of Draupadi's son and lord of Dasharna, the brave Shatradeva, the lord of Chedi and Chitraketu. All of them were angry. These immensely strong ones exhibited their supreme and divine weapons. They angrily surrounded the elephant from every direction, praised by many arrows. The giant elephant was covered with blood from its wound and looked like a colorful king, and mountains with minerals flowing from it. The lord of Dasharna was on an elephant that looked like a mountain. Stationed on that, he attacked Bhagdatta's elephant, but in that encounter Supratika, the king of elephants, withstood the advancing elephant. Like the shoreline counters the ocean. On seeing that the great sword Dasharna's king of elephants was repulsed, even the Pandava soldiers applauded. O supreme among kings, Parjotisa then angrily hurled 14 javelins towards the elephant. These swiftly penetrated the excellent armor established with gold and shattered it like serpents entering a termite hill. O supreme among the Bhatalines, severely preached and wounded, the elephant quickly and forcefully retreated, its craziness pacified. It filled with great speed, uttering loud shrieks and crushing its own rank like a violent storm amidst trees. When that elephant was vanquished, the Pandava Maharathas roared like lions and advanced to do battle. With Bhima leading, they attacked Bhagdatta. They released many kinds of arrows and used different kinds of weapons. O kings, they were angry and intolerant. On seeing them advanced and all on hearing their terrible roars, Bhagdatta, the great archer, angrily and fearlessly urged his own elephant. The supreme of elephants was urged by the goad and the toe. It assumed the form of the fire of destruction. It crushed a large number of chariots, elephants, and horses together with their riders. It angrily crushed hundreds and thousands of foot soldiers, O king. It began to rampage around everywhere in that battle. O great king, agitated, that large army of the Pandus seemed to diminish like leather that is exposed to the fire. On seeing that his own ranks were scattered by the intelligent Bhagdatta, Ghatotkach became angry and attacked Bhagdatta. O king, his visage was gruesome, harsh, and flaming. His eyes burned, burning with rage. He assumed a terrible form. He grasped a giant spear that was capable of shattering a mountain. The immensely strong one hurled it forcibly, wishing to kill the elephant. It was surrounded by sparks and flaming fire in every direction. On seeing it forcibly descended towards him in that battle, flaming away, the king slashed it down with a beautiful arrow that was in the shape of a half moon. He severed that he severed that extremely large spear with a powerful arrow, divided into two, and dislodged. The spear, decorated with gold, fell down on the ground. It was like the great Vajra released by Shakra and guzzling through the sky. On seeing that the spear that been severed into two and brought down, the king grasped a mighty javelin with a golden handle. It was like the flame of a fire, asking the Rakshasa to wait. He hurled it at him. On seeing it descended towards him from the sky like lightning, the Rakshasa roared. He leaped up and grasped it quickly, O descendant of the Bharata lineage, while all the lords of the earth looked on. He placed it on his thighs and broke it. It was extraordinary. Having witnessed this deed accomplished by the powerful Rakshasa, the gods in heaven, together with the Gandharvas and the sages, were astounded. With Bhimsena at the forefront, the great archers among the Pandavas made the earth resound with their roars of applause. However, the powerful Bhagdatta, the great archer, could not bear to hear the roars of delight uttered by those great souled ones. He stretched his great bow, which had a sound like that of Indra's Vajra. He quickly attacked the Maharatha Pandavas. He shot many polished and sharp iron arrows that were as radiant as the fire. He pierced Bhima with one arrow and the Rakshasa with 9, Abhimanyu with 3 and the Kakya with 5. In that battle he stretched his bow back to its full extent and used a gold tufted arrow to pierce Shatradeva's right arm, so that his supreme bow with the arrow affixed to it fell down on the ground. He struck Draupadi's 5 sons with 5. He angrily killed Bhimsena's horses and used 3 arrows to bring down his standard, bearing the marks of a lion. With 3 other arrows, he pierced his charioteer, O best of the Bharata lineage. Severely pierced and wounded by Bhagdatta in that battle, Vishoka sank down on the floor of the chariot. O great king, bereft of his chariot, Bhima, supreme among Rathas, quickly leapt down from his large chariot and grasped a club. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, on seeing him with the upraised club like a mountain with a summit, all those on your side were overcome with terrible fear. At this time, Pandava with Krishna, as his charioteer arrived, slaughtering the enemy in thousands, those tigers among men, scorcher of enemies, father and son, Bhimsena and Ghatotkach were fighting with Part-03 there. O king, O best of the Bharata lineage, on seeing that the Maratha were fighting there, Pandava quickly began to shower down arrows. Maratha king Duryodhana swiftly urged his soldiers full of chariots, elephants, and horses. As the great army of the Kauravas forcefully advanced, Pandava, borne on white steeds, powerfully countered them, or descendant of the Bharata lineage, mounted on his elephant. In that encounter, Bhagdut scattered the Pandava army and advanced towards Yudhishthira. O Venerable One, O tumultuous battle commenced between Bhagdatta and the Panchalas, Sringyas and Kakyas, with the warriors raising their weapons. In that course of that battle, Bhimsena told Keshava and Arjuna the detailed account of how Iravan had been killed. Iravan, Arjuna's son. Arjuna's son Iravan had been killed exactly as it had occurred. Next chapter 92. Sanjay said on hearing that his son, means Arjun's son Iravan, had been killed, Dhananjaya was overcome by great grief. He sighed like a serpent. O king, in that battle he spoke these words to Vasudeva. There is no doubt that the immensely wise Vidura had foreseen all this earlier. The one with great intelligence had known about the terrible destruction of the Kurus and the Pandavas. It was for this reason that he tried to restrain Dhritarashtra, the Lord of Men. O Madhusudana, many brave ones who cannot be slain have been killed by the Kauravas in this battle. We have also killed those on their side. O best of men, evil acts are being perpetrated for the sake of earth. Shame on earth. For its sake, this slaughter of kin is being perpetrated. For one who possesses no wealth, death is preferable to this acquisition of wealth through the slaughter of relatives. O Krishna, what will be gained by killing these assembled relatives? Because of Duryodhana's crimes and those of Shakuni Subala, and because of Karna's evil counsel, all the Kshatriyas are headed towards destruction. O Madhusudana, O mighty armed one, I now understand the king's wise act when he sought only half the kingdom from Suryodhana, or only 5 villages, but the evil-minded one did not grant it. On seeing so many brave Kshatriyas lying down on the ground, I censure myself severely. Shame on the livelihood of Kshatriyas in this battle. The Kshatriyas will know me as inseparable. O Madhusudana, I no longer derive pleasure from this battle with relatives. However, swiftly drive the horses towards the army of the sons of Dhritarashtra. With my 2 arms, I will cross the ocean that this battle is on, that is difficult to cross. O Madhava, this is not the crime to act like a Anuj. Thus, addressed by Partha, Keshava, the destroyer of enemy horses, urged these white horses, which were as fleet as the wind, O descendant of the Bharata lineage, a great roar arose amidst your soldiers. It was like the ocean at the time of the new moon or the full moon, agitated by the force of the wind. O great king, it was afternoon, and a battle commenced between Bhishma and the Pandavas with a roar like that of the clouds. O king, in that encounter your son surrounded Drona like the Vashus around Vashava, and attacked Bhimsena, Bhishma, Santanu's son, Kripa, supreme among Rathas. Bhagdatta and Susarma attacked Dhananjaya. Hardika and Balika attacked Satyaki. King Ambashata encountered Abhimanyu, O great king. Other who were left encountered other Maharathas. A terrible battle was that was fearful in 4 commenced. O Lord of Men, on seeing Bhimsena, your son blessed in that battle, like oblation being poured onto a sacrificial fire, at that time your sons covered Kaunteya with arrows. O great king, It was like monsoon clouds pouring down on mountains, O Lord of man. He was thus enveloped by your sons in many ways and licked the corners of the mouth. The brave one was as proud as a tiger, O king. Bhima brought down Rashka with an extremely sharp and broad-headed arrows, and he was deprived on his life. With another sharp, yellow and broad-headed arrow, he brought down Kundalina like a lion bringing down a small animal. O venerable one, having approached your sons, he swiftly took up 7 extremely sharp and yellow arrows, firm in yielding the bow. Bhimsena dispatched these arrows and brought down your sons, extremely great Maharathas, from their chariots. These were Anandrishika, Kundabeda, Bhairata, Obul among the Bharata lineage. As they fell down, these brave ones were radiant, like blossoming and dappled trees that fell down during the stream. O Lord of the earth, your remaining sons fled. They thought that the immensely strong Bhimsena was like death himself. On seeing that the brave one had consumed your sons in the battle, Drona showered arrows on him from every direction like rain pouring on a mountain. We beheld the manliness of Kunti's son, and it was extraordinary. Though he was restrained by Drona, yet he killed your sons like a bull bears a downpour of rain from above. Bhima tolerated the shower of arrows released by Drona, O great king. Brikodara performed a wonderful deed while repulsing Drona. He killed your sons in that battle. Arjuna's elder brother played with your brave sons like an immensely strong tiger roaming around amidst deer, or like a wolf stationing itself amidst animals and driving those animals away. Thus did Brikodara driven by sons away in that battle. Gangeya, Bhagdut and Maharata Gautama countered the violent Pandava Arjuna. In that encounter, the Atiratha repulsed all their weapons with his own weapons. He dispatched many brave soldiers on your side to the land of the dead. Abhimanyu used his arrow to deprive King Ambastha, famous in the world and foremost among Rathas, of his chariot. Deprived of his chariot, he was about to be slain by Subhadra's illustrious son. O Lord of men, insane, he quickly leapt down from his chariot. In that battle, he hurled his sword at Subhadra's great-shouldered son and ascended onto the chariot of the great-shouldered Hadikeya. Subhadra's son was the destroyer of enemy horses and was skilled in all the techniques of war. On seeing the sword descended towards him, the avoided in through his dexterous movements. O Lord of the earth, at this loud sounds of applause were heard among all the soldiers. With Dishtidumya at the forefront, others fought with your soldiers, and those on your side fought with the soldiers of the Pandus. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, there was a great battle between those on your side and theirs. They killed each other fiercely and performed extremely difficult deeds, O venerable one. In that battle, the brave ones seized each other by the hair. They fought with their nails and teeth, and with their fists and thighs. They used their arms and palms and extremely sharp swords. They shout out each other's weakness and dispatched each other to Yama's abode. The father killed the son, and the son the father in the battle. Those men fought there, dispirited and firm in their resolution. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, in that battle, beautiful bows with golden handles and extremely expensive ornaments were loosened from the hands of those who had been slain. There were sharp arrows with tips made of pure gold and silver and washed in oil. They were as resplendent as snakes that have cast off their skin. There were swords decorated with gold, with handles made out of ivory. There were shields and bow shades for the archers with golden backs. There were spears, javelins, swords, and spikes. All of these were decorated with gold and established with gold. They were as bright as gold. O venerable one, heavy clubs were destroyed and fell down. There were maces, battle axes, and catapults. Colorful spears decorated with gold fell down. There were many types of forms of carpets and wicks and fans. There were many types of weapons dislodged from men who had fallen down. Though they had lost their lives, the Marathas seemed to be alive. Their bodies were shattered through clubs. Their heads were smashed through masses. The men lay on the ground, crushed by elephants, horses, and chariots. O king, the earth was strewn everywhere with the bodies of slain horses, men, and elephants, which looked like mountains and seemed to be beautiful spears, swords, arrows, javelins, scimitars, spike lances, darts, battle axes, clubs, catapults, and shatagnis fell down on the field of battle there. The earth was strewn with bodies was had been shattered by weapons. Some were silent, others made sight sounds. They were covered with blood. The earth was strewn with the bodies of those who had been killed by the enemy and looked beautiful. The arm was spirited, once had leather guard and bracelets and were smeared with sandalwood paste. Their shattered thighs were like the trunks of elephants. The crowns of the heads were adorned with jewels. The heads bore earning descended of the birth lineage. The earth was resplendent with the bull-eyed ones who had fallen down. The earth was covered with armor and golden ornaments drenched in blood. It looked as beautiful as a fire with calm flames. Ornaments were strewn around, the bows was fallen down, bows and gold-tipped arrows were scattered in every direction. There were many shattered chariots garlanded with nets of bells. Dead horses were lying around with protruding tongues and drenched in blood. There were the floors of chariots, standards, quivers, and pennants. Large and white conch shells belonging to the brave ones were scattered around. Elephants were supine on the ground, their trunks severed, and the earth looked as beautiful as the lady, adorned with many different kinds of ornaments. There were tuskers in great pain, pierced with lances. They repeatedly let out moon through their trunks. That field of battle was beautiful as if with mobile mountains. There were carpets of many different hues and cushions for the elephants, dazzling gourds with handle made of lapis lazuli fell down. Bells for the kings among elephants were scattered around everywhere. There were colorful seats and hides of ranku deer. There were colorful necklaces and golden harnesses for the elephants. There were many shattered implements and lances and campanas. There were shattered golden breastplates for the horses, swelled with dirt. The severed arms of the horse riders fell down, with the bracelets still there. There were polished and sharp javelins and polished swords. Torn headdresses were scattered around there. There were colorful arrows in the sharp shape of the half moon decorated with gold. There were cushions for the horses, and the hides of rinku deer. There were colorful as extremely expensive gems for the crest of those Indras among men. Umbrellas were scattered around, and wigs and fans. The faces were as beautiful as the lotus or the moon, and were still adorned with earrings. The brave ones were ornamented, and their beards were well trimmed. O great king, they were beautiful and radiant with golden earrings. The earth looked like the sky with its array of planets and stars. O descendant of the Bharatian lineage, thus did those two large armies, yours and that of the enemy, clashed against each other in that battle. O descendant of the Bharatian lineage, they were exhausted, scattered and routed. Night set in, and nothing could be seen in the field of battle. The soldiers of the Kurus and the Pandavas retreated. The terrible and fearful night set in, and the Kurus and the Pandavas withdrew from the extremely terrible encounter. With the time having come, they retreated to their own camps. Next chapter 893. Sanjay said, O great king, the king Duryodhana. Sanjay was also present in Mahabharat war. After war, Sanjay told everything to Dhritarashtra. Okay. Sanjay said, O great king, the king Duryodhana, Shakuni, Subala, your son Dushasana, and the invincible son of the Sutta assembled and consulted each other. How could the sons of Pandu, together with their followers, be vanquished in battle? King Duryodhana spoke to all his advisers, addressing particularly the son of the Sutta and the immensely strong Subala. I do not know the reason why Drona, Bhishma, Kripa, Shalya, and Somdatta's son are unable to resist the Parthas in this battle. They are not being killed, but are demolishing my army. O Karna, in this battle, my army is becoming weaker and my weapons are being exhausted. I have been deceived by the Pandavas, they cannot be slain even by the gods. I am full of doubts. I am full of doubt as to what I should do in this battle. O great king, the son of the Sutta then spoke to the king, O best of the Bharata lineage, do not grieve, I will do what is agreeable to you. Let Bhishma, Santanu's son, withdraw from this great battle, O descendant of the Bharata lineage. When Gangeya has withdrawn from the battle and has cast aside these weapons, I will kill the Parthas, together with all the Somakas, while Bhishma witness the battle. O king, this is the plague pledge I truthfully take. O king, Bhishma has always acted kindly towards the Pandavas. Bhishma is incapable of vanquishing those Maharathas in battle. I think Karna was right. Bhishma is proud of his prowess in battle and always loves an encounter. O father, how can he defeat the Pandavas when he encounters them in battle? Therefore, you should quickly go to Bhishma's camp. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, you should request Bhishma to cast aside his weapons in battle. When Bhishma casts aside his weapons, you will see the Pandavas killed. O king, I will alone accomplish this in the battle together with their well wishers and their relatives. Having been thus addressed by Karna, your son Duryodhana spoke these words to his brother Dushasana. O Dushasana, let all those who will come with me be appropriately distressed. Quickly make all the arrangements. O king, having thus spoken, the Lord of Man then addressed Karna. O supreme among men, O scourger of enemies, having requested Bhishma to withdraw from the battle, I will swiftly return and come before you. O tiger among men, you will then act in this battle, O Lord of earth. Without any delay, your son departed. He left with his brothers like Shatakatu with all the gods. His brother Dushasana quickly made his brother, who was a tiger among kings, and with the valor of a tiger, ascended a horse. The king was adorned with armlets and bracelets and wore a crown on his head. O great king, Dhritarashtra's son was as resplendent as the great Indra. He was smeared with fragrant sandalwood paste. He looked like a bhandi flower and had a golden complexion. He was clad in garments that had no dirt on them. The king proceeded with the sporting gait of a lion. He was as beautiful as an autumn sun with unblemished rays. That tiger among men departed from Bhishma's camp. He was followed by great archers who were famous in all the world as archers. His brothers, great archers, also followed him, like the 30 gods and Vashava. O descendant of the Bharatiya lineage, there were other astride horses and still other astride elephants, others and chariots. The foremost of men surrounded him in every direction. His well wishers had taken up arms for the sake of protecting the Lord of the earth. They were with him like the immortals with Shakra in heaven. The Mahabharata among the Kauravas was worshipped by the Kurus. O king, he went towards the illustrious Ganga's abode. The king was followed and surrounded by his brothers in every direction. Occasionally, he raised his right arm. It was as muscular as the trunk of an elephant and was capable of destroying all enemies. He raised that arm and accepted the worship of the kings, who were in every direction, hands joined in salutation. He heard sweet words from the residents of many countries. The immensely illustrious one was praised by beards and minstrels. So, friends, residents from many countries, okay, the Lord of all the lords of the worlds honored all of them in return. Great souled ones surrounded in him in every direction with golden lamps, with fragrant oil as fuel. The king was surrounded by these auspicious and golden lamps. He was as beautiful as the moon, surrounded by the resplendent large planets. They were extended with golden headdresses, and with drums and sticks in their hands, they gently asked the pupil in every direction to make way. Having reached Bhishma's beautiful abode, the Lord of Men got down from his horse and approached Bhishma. He paid his respect to Bhishma and sat down on an excellent and golden seat. It was beautiful everywhere and was covered with a wonderful carpet. He jointed his hands in salutation and spoke to Bhishma, his voice uh, choking and his eyes full of tears. O descended, O destroyer of enemies, we sought your protection and restored to this war. In the battle we thought we possessed the enterprise to defeat the gods and the asuras combined together with Indra, not to speak of the brave sons of Pandu with their well wishers and their relatives, O Lord, O Gangya. Therefore, you should show your compassion towards me. Slay the brave sons of Pandu like the great Indra against the Danavas. O mighty armed one, O descendant of the Bharata lineage, you earlier said that you would kill the Somakas and the Panchalas together with the Pandavas. Act accordingly and make your words come true. Kill the assembled Parthas and the great archers, the Somakas, the O descendant of the Bharata lineage, make those words come true, O Lord, O King. If you protect the Pandavas because of compassion, because of your hatred of me, or because of my misfortune, then I seek your permission to allow Karna, the ornament of any battle, to fight. He will defeat the Parthas with their well-wishers and their relatives in battle. Having said this, the king Yudhishthir Duryodhana did not say anything more to Bhishma, whose valor was terrible. Next chapter 94. Sanjay said, "These words spoken by your son were like stakes, and Bhishma was pleased by them. He was overcome by great grief, but did not say anything unpleasant in reply. Overcome by grief and anger, he thought for a very long time. Wounded by these stakes, he sighed like a serpent, O descendant of the Bharata lineage, the supreme among those who know the worlds, then raised his eyes. He seemed to burn the worlds with the gods, the Asuras and the Gandharvas with his anger. However, he spoke these conciliatory words to your son, O Duryodhana. Why are you pressing me with words that are like stakes? To the best of my strength, I have always sought to do that which brings you pleasure. Desiring your welfare, I am ready to give up my life in this battle. When the brave Pandava gratified Agni in Khandava, he defeated even Shakra in battle. That is proof, O mighty armed one. When the Gandharvas captured you, Pandu's energetic son freed you. That is proof, O Lord. At that time, all your brave brothers ran away, and so did Radheya Karna, the son of a Suta. That is proof. In Virata city, he singly attacked all of us together. That is proof he was angry and defeated both me and Drona in battle. He robbed the garments of Karna, Drona's son, Ashwathama, and the great Mahabharata Kripa. That is proof. Partha vanquished the Nivatkavachas in battle, whom even Vashava found to be invincible in an encounter. That is proof who is capable of vanquishing Pandava, who prides himself in an encounter in battle, O Suyodhana. Because of your delusion, you do not know what should be said and what should not be said, O man. A man who is about to die thinks that all trees are made of gold. O Gandhari's son, in that fashion you are looking at everything in a contrary way. I think Bhishma was also right. You have yourself created this great enmity with the Pandavas and the Sanjayas. Fight with them in the battle now and show your manliness. O tiger woman, I will myself kill all the assembled Somakas and the Panchalas avoiding Shikandi. Slain by them in battle, I will go to Yama's abode, or I will kill them in battle and give you pleasure. Shikandi was earlier born as a girl in the king's abode. By virtue of a boon, she was born as a man. That is that lady Shikandi, or descendant of the Bharata lineage. I will not kill him, even if it means giving up my own life. Shikandi is the one whom the Creator made a lady earlier. Friends, Shikandi was homosexual, okay? O Gandhari's son, sleep happily. I will fight a great battle tomorrow, one that will be spoken about as long as the earth exist. O Lord of man, having been thus addressed, your son departed. He paid respect to his elders by lowering his head and left for his own residence. Having returned, the king asked his attendants to leave. The destroyer of enemy quickly entered, and having entered, the king passes the night. Next chapter 95. Sanjay said, when night passed and it was morning, the king arose the king instruction all the warriors prepared for battle. In the encounter today, the angry Bhishma will kill all the Somakas. O king, on hearing Duryodhana's many lamentations in the night, he regarded them as instruction unto himself. He was supremely depressed and censored what the other had said. Santanu's son thought for a long time and desired to encounter Arjuna in battle. O great king, Duryodhana understood from the signs what Gangeya had been thinking about and instructed Dushasana, let chariots quickly be yaked so that Bhishma can be protected. Let 32 entire divisions be instructed accordingly. What we have thought about for many years has now come to pass. With their soldiers, the Pandavas will be slain and the kingdom will be obtained. I think that Bhishma's protection is our task now. Protected by us, he will carefully slaughter the Parthas in this battle. The one with the pure soul said, I will not kill Shikandi. He was a lady earlier, therefore I should avoid him in battle. O mighty armed one, the world knows that in an attempt to bring pleasure to my father, I gave up woman and a prosperous kingdom. So Sikandi was a homosexual. I told that. And a prosperous kingdom earlier, O foremost among men. Therefore, I will not kill in battle anyone who has been born a woman or has been a woman earlier. I am telling you this truthfully, O king. Shikandi was a woman earlier, and heard me. You have heard me tell you this when preparations were being made for the war. She born as Sikandi, or descendant of the Bharata lineage, having been a woman, she was born as man and wished to fight, but I can never release arrows at her. O son, but if there are any other Kshatriyas who desire the victory of the Pandavas in battle, I will kill them all. As soon as they come within reach of my arrows, these were the words spoken to me by Gangeya, foremost among the Bharata lineage and skilled in knowledge of the sacred text. Therefore, with all my heart, I think that Bhishma's protection is most important. In that great forest, a wolf can kill a lion that is unprotected. Let Shikandi not be like a wolf that kill a tiger. Let our maternal uncle Shikandi, Shalya, Kripa, Drona and Bhimanshati make endeavors to protect Gangeya. If he is protected, victory is certain. On hearing Duryodhana's word, all the kings surrounded Gangeya from every direction with a large number of chariots. Your sons surrounded Gangeya and got ready to fight. The earth and the firmament trembled, and the Pandavas were agitated. The Marathas possessed chariots and well trained elephants armored. They stationed themselves and surrounded Bhishma in that battle. Just as the 30 gods protect the wielder of the Vajra in a battle between the gods and the Asuras, in that way, all of them were stationed to protect the Mahabharata. King Duryodhana again spoke to his brothers. Yudhamanyu is protecting Arjuna's left wheel and Uttamaja is right, while Arjuna is protecting Shikandi or Dushasana acts so that he cannot kill Bhishma, while protected by Partha and while he is abandoned by us. On hearing these brothers' words, your son Dushasana left with the army with Bhishma at the forefront. On seeing Bhishma surrounded by that large number of chariots, Arjuna, best of Rathas, spoke to Dishtidumya, O unblemished one, let Shigandi, tiger among men, be placed in front of Bhishma, O one without decay. Establish the Panchala there, and I will myself be his protector. Bhishma, Santanu's son, then advanced with his soldiers. In that encounter, he stationed his soldiers in the form of a large vyuha known as Sharavato Bhadra, or descendant of the Bharata lineage, Kripa, Kritavarma, Maharata, Shaibya, Shakuni, Saidhava, Sundakshina from Cambodia, and all your sons were stationed in front of all the soldiers and in front of a vyuha, together with Bhishma, O venerable one, Drona, Bhurishava, Shalya, and Bhagdut, armored and stationed themselves on the right flank of the vyuha. Ashwathama, Somdatta, and the two Maharathas from Avanti protected the left flank together with a large army. O great king, O king, O descendant of the Bharata lineage, to counter the Pandavas, Duryodhana stationed himself in the midst of the vyuha, surrounded by the Trigarthas, Alambusha, the Rakshasa, best among Rathas, and Maharatha Shrutayu, armored and stationed themselves at the rear of the vyuha and behind all the soldiers. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, thus did those on your side construct a vyuha. When they were armored, they looked like blazing fire. At this, King Yudhishthira, Pandava, Bhimsena, and Madrish son Nakula and Sahadeva armored and stationed themselves in the vyuha ahead of all the soldiers. Dishtidumya, Virata, and Maharata Satyaki, the destroyer of enemy ranks, stationed themselves with a large army. O great king Shikandi, Vijaya, the Rakshasa Ghatotkach, the mighty armed Chekitana, and the valiant Kunti Bhoja were ready for battle, surrounded by a large army. The great archer Abhimanyu, Maratha, Drupada, and the five brothers from Kakia were armored and stationed ready for battle. O venerable one, thus did the brave Pandavas, invincible in battle, create a great vyuha as a counter vyuha in that encounter, and were ready to fight. In that encounter, the kings on your side suddenly rushed with great enterprise to do battle. O king, placing Bhishma in that front, they advanced against the Parthas. In that battle, O king, in a similar way, the Pandavas placed Bhimsena at the forefront, wishing to fight against Bhishma and desiring victory. In that encounter, there were war cries and sound of joy. There were the sounds of shows and cow horns. The Pandavas played on battle drums, cymbals, and smaller drums, and there was a terrible roar as they advanced. They were the sounds of battle drums, other drums, and conch shells. On our side, there were delighted roars like those of lions and other shouts as we rode back in return and quickly advanced against them. We advanced forcefully and angrily, and a tumultuous sound arose. They rushed against each other and struck each other. Because of that great sound, the earth began to tremble. Bird uttered terrible shrieks and began to fly around. The sun had risen with all its rays, but now seemed to be dimmed. There was a turbulent wind, significant great disaster. Fearful jackals began to roam around, howling terribly. O great king, all of this seemed to tell us that a great calamity was at hand. O king, the direction blazed and ash began to shower down. Then there was a shower of bone mixed with blood. The mounds began to weep and tears began to fell from their eyes. O Lord of Earth, because of their anxiety, they discharged urine and excrement. Man eating Rakshasas began to roar in terrible tones. We saw that jackals, cranes, and crows began to swooped down. Dogs uttered many terrible jaws. Flaming meteors struck against the sun and suddenly fell down on the ground. All this significant a great fear. In that great encounter, the two large armies of the Pandavas and the sons of Dhritarashtra chased. There was the din of conch shells and drums, and this caused a tremor like that of a forest agitated by storm. In that inauspicious moments, kings, elephants, and horses clashed against each other, and tremendous noise was like that of ocean agitated by a tempest. Next chapter 96 Sanjay said, so Sanjay was also present in Mahabharat war. Afterwards, Sanjay told everything to Dhritarashtra. Okay. Sanjay said the energetic Abhimanyu, foremost among Rathas, was born on steeds that were of a tawny color and advanced against Duryodhana's large army. He brought down a shower of arrows like clouds pouring down rain. The bulls among the Kurus who were on your side could not resist Subhadra's angry son in battle. The destroyer of enemies possessed a great number of weapons, and he immersed himself in that inexhaustible oceans of soldiers. O king, in that encounter he released many arrows that destroyed enemies. They conveyed the brave Kshatriyas to the abode of the king of the dead. In that battle, Subhadra's angry son Abhimanyu unleashed arrows that were like Yamdeva's stuck. They were flaming and terrible like poisonous serpents. Phalguna's son quickly brought down charioteers from their chariots, horse riders from the backs of horses, and elephant riders together with the elephants. In that great battle, the lords of the earth cheerfully honored in his extraordinary deeds and praised Phalguna's son. Subhadra's son drove away many colorful armies. Phalguna's son, Subhadra's son, was Abhimanyu. Like masses of cotton blown away by the wind in every direction, O descendant of the birthly lineage, driven away by him, your soldiers could not find a protector and were like elephants stuck in the mud. O king, having driven all your soldiers away, Abhimanyu, supreme among men, stood like a flaming fire without any smoke. All those on your side could not counter the destroyer of enemies and were like insects driven by destiny before a flaming fire. Having struck all the enemies of the Pandavas, the Maratha and great archer was like the wielder of the Vajra with his Vajra. His bow had a golden back. O king, as it was moved around in every direction, it was seen to be as radiant as lightning. The arrows released from his bow in that battle were sharp and yellow. They were like flocks of bees visiting blossoming trees in the forest. That is the way Subhadra's great souled son roamed around. His chariot roared like the clouds, and people could not find opportunity to strike him. He confounded Kripa, Dronashan, Ashwathama, Brihadalaka, and Sandhava, the great archer. He moved around with skills and dexterity, O Venerable One, as he tormented your army. I saw that his bow was drawn in the shape of a circle and was like the circular halo that is around the sun. Brave Kshatriyas saw this and were tormented by his arrows because of his deeds. They brought the world now had two Falgunas, means two Arjunas, O great king, oppressed by him. That great army of the Bharatas ran here and there like a woman intoxicated with liquor. He drove away your soldiers and made the Maharathas tremble and delighted his well-wishers like Vashava after vanquishing Maya. Driven away by him in that battle, your soldiers uttered lamentations and woe, and this sounded like the roar of the clouds. O Venerable One, on hearing that awful wail amidst your soldiers, like that of the ocean agitated by the force of the wind at the time of the new moon or the full moon, King Duryodhana spoke to Rishyasringa's son, the great archer, who is Krishna's son, is like a second Falguna. He is driven away the soldier in rage, like Vitra against the army of the gods. I do not see any other great medicine against him in this battle except your own self, you best of the Rakshasas. Rishishinga's sons means Alambusha, the Rakshasa. You are skilled in all forms of knowledge, O brave one, go swiftly and slay Subhadra's son in battle. We will kill Partha with Bhishma and Drona leading us. Thus addressed and following the instruction of your son, the powerful and strong Indra among the Rakshasas quickly advanced to do battle. He emitted a loud roar like a slayer of Bala at the time of the monsoon. O king, at this great soul, the mighty arm of the Pandavas trembled in every direction. Like a full ocean, O king, frightened by the roar, many men gave up their beloved lives and fell down on the ground. Krishna's son was delighted and grasped his bow and arrows. He seemed to be dancing around on his chariot and attacked the Rakshasa. The Rakshasa was enraged and approached Arjuna's son in the battle. Stationing himself at the short distance, he started to drive away the soldiers. In that battle, he killed the great army of the Kauravas. The Rakshasa attacked them in the encounter like Bali against the army of the gods. O Venerable One, there was a great oppression and slaughter among those soldiers. The Rakshasa, terrible in form, killed them in that battle. He released thousands of arrows on the great army of the Pandavas. The Rakshasa displayed his valor and drew them back in the battle. Thus, slaughtered by the Rakshasa, terrible in form, the army of the Pandavas was frightened and fled from the field of the battle. He crushed those soldiers like an elephant amidst lotuses. In that encounter, the immensely strong one then attacked the sons of Draupadi. The great archers who were Draupadi's sons were armored and become wrathful. All of them advanced against the Rakshasa like 5 planets against the sun. Prativindya swiftly pierced the immensely strong Rakshasa with sharp, vigorous, and iron arrows. They penetrated his armor, and the supreme among Rakshasas looked resplendent. He was like a giant mass of rain clouds penetrated by the rays of the sun. O king, he was struck by arrows that were established with gold, and Rishishinga's son looked like a mountain with a flaming summit. In that great battle, the 5 brothers pierced the Indra among Rakshasa with sharp arrows that were established with God. O king, pierced by the terrible arrows that were like angry snakes, Alambhus had become as angry as the king of elephants. O great king, O venerable one, he was pierced within a short instant, having been wounded. The Maratha remained unconscious for a long time. When he regained consciousness in his rage, He increased his demonius to double of what they were. He slashed down their arrows, standards, and bows. As if smiling, he pierced each of them with 3 arrows. Maratha Alambusha seemed to be dancing around on his chariot. The Rakshasa was angry, and in his rage, the immensely strong one killed the horses and the charioteers of the great souled ones. In that in great delight he again pierced them with extremely sharp arrows. He used many different kinds of arrows in hundreds and thousands. Those great archers were bereft of their chariot by the Rakshasa, and the traveller of the night swiftly rushed against them, wishing to kill them. On seeing them thus oppressed in battle by the evil souled Rakshasa, Arjuna's son attacked the Rakshasa in that battle. The battle that commenced was like that between Vitra and Vashava. All those on our side and the Maharatha Pandavas witnessed it. They encountered each other in that great battle and blazed with rage. O great king, they were immensely strong and their eyes were red with rage. The warriors glanced towards each other like the fire at the destruction of a yuga. There was a terrible encounter that was fierce and awful. It was like that between Shakra and Shambhara during the battle between the gods and the Asuras. Next chapter 97. Dhritarashtra asked, O Sanjay, Arjuna's brave son killed many Maharathas in battle. How did Alambusha counter him in the encounter? How did Subhadra's son, the destroyer of enemy heroes, fight with Rishishinga's son, Alambusha? Tell me all this in detail, exactly as it occurred in the course of the battle. O Sanjay, what did Dhananjaya do against my soldiers and Bhima, foremost among strong ones, Rakshasa Ghatotkach, Nakula Sadeva, and Maratha Satyaki? O Sanjay, tell me all this because you was killed. Sanjay replied, O Venerable One, I will later tell you about the battle that took place between the Indra among the Rakshasas and Subhadra's son. It made the body hair stand up. I will also recount to you the valor of Arjuna and Pandava Bhimsena in the battle, and that of Nakula Sadeva in that encounter. I will also tell you about the extraordinary and wonderful deeds of those on your side performed without fear and with Bhishma and Drona at the forefront. In that encounter against Maratha, Abhimanyu Alambusha roared extremely loudly. He advanced, roaring again and again, and asking him to wait. O king, in the battle, Subhadra's son also roared repeatedly like a lion. He attacked the great archer who was Rishishinga's son Alambusha and was also a sworn enemy of his father's. The man and the Rakshasa, foremost among Rathas, swiftly confronted each other in battle on their respective chariots like a gods and the Danava. The foremost among Rakshasas were skilled in Maya, and Falguna's son, means Arjuna's son, was skilled in the use of divine weapons. O great king, Krishna's son, means Arjuna's son, used 3 sharp arrows to pierce Rishishinga's son in that battle, and then again pierced him with 5 arrows. Alambusha became angry and pierced Krishna's son in the chest with 9 swift arrows, like forcefully striking a giant elephant with a goad. O descendant of the Bharatiya lineage, in that battle, the traveller of the night, swift in action, used 1,000 arrows to oppress Arjuna's son. Abhimanyu became angry. He shot 9 sharp arrows with drooping tips at the Rakshasa's giant chest. They quickly pierced his body and penetrated in inner organs. O king, the limbs of the supreme among Rakshasas were mangled, and he was as beautiful as a mountain with blossoming kimshukas, bearing those gold encrusted arrows, the best of the Rakshasas, immensely strong, was as dazzling as a flaming mountain, O great king. As this Rishishinga's immensely strong son Alambhusa became wrathful. He enveloped Krishna's son, who was like the great Indra. Friends, there is four Krishna in Mahabharata. First, Arjuna Krishna. Second, Balram's younger brother Krishna. Third, Krishna Draupadi. Third, Krishna Dvaipayana. Means Bedvyas. So, who was like the great Indra with arrows. He released sharp arrows that were like Yama's staff. These pierced Abhimanyu and fell down on the ground. Arjuna's son shot arrows that were decorated with gold. They pierced Alambhusa and penetrated the ground. In that battle, Subhadra's son used straight tufted arrows to make the Rakshasa retreat like Shakra in a battle against Maya. Having been repulsed, the Rakshasa, the scourger of enemies, wished to kill his enemies in the battle and restored to his great powers of dark Maya. He caused everything on the ground to be enveloped in darkness. Abhimanyu could not be seen, and those on one's own side or that of the enemy could not be distinguished in that battle. On seeing that terrible and great gloom, Abhimanyu, the descendant of the Kuru lineage, invoked the supreme weapon known as Bhaskara, or Lord of the Earth. At this, everything in universe again became visible. Thus, the Maya of the evil soul Rakshasa was destroyed. In that encounter, Maya means illusion. The greatly valorous Indra among Rakshasas became angry. He shrouded the supreme of man with straight lupted arrows. The Rakshasa used many other kinds of Maya, but Falguna's son, Arjuna's son, skilled in the use of all weapons and with an immeasurable soul, countered all of them. The Rakshasa's illusion Maya was destroyed and he was wounded with arrows. He discarded his chariot and fled in great fear. After having defeated the Rakshasa who used deceitful means to fight, Arjuna's son began to crush your soldiers in the battle. He was like a wild king of elephants, crazy with must, agitating a pound that was full of lotuses. Bhishma, Santanu's son, saw that the soldiers were being routed. He surrounded Subhadra's son with a large number of chariots. Many brave Maharathas among the sons of Dhritarashtra created a circle around him. A single one fought against many and they struck him with firm arrows. That brave Ratha was like his father in valor. He was Vasudeva's equal in valor and strength. Vasudeva means Krishna. He was supreme among all wielders of weapons and in that battle performed many deeds and were like the two of them, his father and his maternal uncle. O king, Dhananjaya began to destroy your soldiers, wishing to rescue his son. The intolerant and arrival at the spot where he was fighting with Bhishma, O king. In that battle, your father Devrata attacked Partha in the encounter. Like Shvarbhanu against the sun, O Lord of Earth, with chariots, elephants, and horses, your son surrounded Bhishma in that battle, wishing to protect him in every direction. O king, in that fashion the Pandavas surrounded the Dhananjaya, O bull among the Bharata lineage. The armored ones engaged in a great battle. O king, Saradvata stationed himself in front of Bhishma. He praised Arjuna with 25 arrows to accomplish a pleasant task for Pandava. Satyaki attacked him like a tiger against an elephant and praised him with sharp arrows. Gautama was enraged. In return, he swiftly pierced Madhava in the chest with 9 arrows that were tipped with the feathers of herons. Shini's descendant became extremely angry at Having been praised, the Maratha unleashed a terrible arrows at Gautama, one capable of taking his life away. On seeing it descended with great force, as radiant as Shakra's Vajra, Drona's son, driven by supreme rage, angrily sliced it down into two. Avoiding Gautama supreme among Rathas in that battle, Sinis descended, then attacked Drona's son in that encounter, like Rahu in the sky against the moon, O descendant of the Bharata lineage. However, Drona's son sliced his bow into two, and once his bow had been severed, oppressed him with arrows. The destroyer of enemies picked up another bow that was capable of bearing a great burden. O great king, he struck Druna's son in the arms and the chest with 6 arrows. Having been thus pierced and wounded, he lost his senses for some time. He sat down on the floor of his chariot, using the pole of his standard for support. Having regained his senses, Drona's powerful son angrily pierced Varshanaya in that encounter with iron arrows. This priest Sinis descended and penetrated the ground like a powerful and young snake entering a hole during the spring. In that encounter, Drona's son roared like a lion. He used another broad-headed arrow to sever Madhava's supreme standard, or descendant of the Bharata lineage, O king. He again unleashed a shower of arrows to envelop him like clouds covering the sun at the end of summer. O great king, Satyaki destroyed that net of arrows and quickly covered Drona's son with many nets of arrows. Drona's son means Ashwathama. He was like the sun that had emerged from a net of clouds. Sinis descended, the destroyer of enemy heroes, crushed Drona's son. The immensely strong Satyaki rode and again enveloped him with thousands of arrows. On seeing that his son was eclipsed like the moon afflicted by Rahu, Bharadwaja's powerful son attacked Sinis descended, O king. In that great battle, he pierced him with extremely sharp arrows, desiring to rescue his son, who was being tormented by Varshanaya in that battle. Having defeated by Maharatha's son of his preceptor Satyaki, then pierced Drona with 20 arrows that were completely made out of iron. Kanteya, born on white steeds, was immeasurable in his soul. In that encounter, the Maratha angrily attacked Drona. O great king, in that great battle, Drona clashed against Partha, and it was like Buddha and Shukra meeting each other in the firmament. Next chapter 98. Dhritarashtra asked, O Sanjay, how did those brave and great archers Drona and Pandava Dhananjaya encountered each other in that battle? Tell me. Pandava was always be beloved of Bharadwaja's intelligent son. O Sanjay, in that encounter, the preceptor was always the beloved of Partha. Those two Rathas was proud in battle and are as fierce as lion. How did Dhananjaya and Bharadwaja's son Drona clash against each other in the encounter? Sanjay said, in a battle, Drona does not know Partha as someone who is dear to himself, placing the dharma of Kshatriyas at the forefront. Partha does not knowledge a preceptor in an encounter. O king, Kshatriyas do not avoid each other in an encounter without any fear. They fight with their fathers and their brothers. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, in that battle Partha pierced Drona with 3 arrows, but he paid no heed to the arrows that had been released from Partha's bow in that battle. In that battle, Partha again covered him with a shower of arrows, and he blazed in anger like a conflagration in a deserted forest. In that battle, Drona released straight tipped arrows towards Arjuna, O descendant of the Bharata lineage, O Indra among kings, O those were speedily encountered, O king. King Duryodhana instructed Shusharma to protect Drona's flank. In that battle, the angry king and Trigarta drew his bow, and in that battle enveloped Partha with arrows with iron heads. O king, the arrows released by both of them were represented in the sky, O great king. They looked like swans in the autumn sky, O Lord. Those dazzling arrows reached Kaunteya and penetrated like birds entering a tree that is lowered from the burden of succulent fruit. Arjuna, supreme among Rathas, roared in that battle. In that encounter, he preached the king of Trigarta and his sons with arrows. Partha preached them like the fire at the destruction of a yuga, but having made up their minds to die, they did not retreat from the encounter with Partha. They showered arrows towards Pandava's chariots, O Indra among kings. Pandava encountered that showers of arrows with his own showers of arrows. He was like a mountain receiving a downpour of rain. We witnessed the extraordinary dexterity of Vibhotsu's hand. The brave one encountered many showers of arrows that were difficult to withstand, like the wind scattering masses of clouds. The gods and the Danavas were delighted with Partha's deed. O descendant of the Bharata lineage, Partha angrily advanced against Tighartha in battle. O great king, he released the Vaivya weapon against the head of their army. A turbulent wind arose in the sky. It brought down masses of trees and killed the soldiers. Drona beheld that extremely terrible Vaivya weapon. O great king, he released the extremely terrible weapon known as Shaila. When Drona released this weapon in the great battle, the wind was pacified and the direction became placid. But Pandu's brave son made the Trigarthas roaming around on their chariots deprived in that battle. They lost their valor and retreated. The king Duryodhana, Kripa, supreme among Rathas, Ashwatthama, Shalya, Sudakshina from Cambodia, Vindhya and Anuvindhya from Avanti, and Balika and the army of the Balika surrounded Partha from every direction with a great number of chariots. In a similar way, Bhagdatta and the immensely strong Shutayu surrounded Bhima from every direction with a large army of elephants, O Lord of Earth. Bhurishrava, Shala and Shobala quickly countered Madri's son with many colorful arrows. With all the sons of Dhritarashtra and their soldiers, Bhisma attacked Yudhishthira and surrounded him from every direction. On seeing that army of elephants descended, the brave Partha Brikodara licked the corners of his mouth like a king of deer in a forest. The best of Rathas grasped a club in the great battle. He swiftly got down from his chariot and terrified your soldiers. On seeing him with the club in his hand, the elephant riders made endeavors to surround Bhimsena from every side in that battle, but Pandava penetrated the midst of the elephants and began to roam around. He was like the sun in the middle of the large mass of clouds. The bull of the Pandava lineage slew that army of elephants with his club. He was like the wind, scattering a large mass of cloud. Those tuskers were slaughtered by the powerful Bhimsena. They shrieked in the battle, roaming like clouds. There were many wounded on his body, resulting from the tusks of the elephants, Partha dazzling in the forefront of the battle. Like the flowering Ashoka tree, he seized some elephants, bowed their tusks, and uprooted their tusks. He used those tusks to strike the elephants on their temples. He brought them down in the battle like Yama. With the staff in this hand, the club was covered with blood and his body was spattered with fat and marrow. With blood on his armlet, he seemed to be like Rudra, O king. Thus slaughter and remaining mighty elephants flew in all the directions, crushing their own soldiers in the process. Obul among the Bharata lineage, the gigantic elephants were driven away in all the directions. All of Duryodhana's soldiers retreat from the field of battle.